Today's story hits the ground running right from the start, with this wildly flashy woman who steals the spotlight the second she steps in, showing off her skills like she owns the room. He obliterated a stone target with a brutal, blinding flash missile. Her little daughter totally nailed it. She just hit a target a whole kilometer away like it was nothing. Then the woman pushes Ein to line up the shot for the golem's heart, and to imagine the stones all around it like they're its loyal buddies. The boy snatches the memo and starts channeling his magic with a surge of raw power. He fires off his own flash missile, no holding back. And boom, his golem detonates in a fireball. Every single person's jaw drops at the sheer scale of that explosion. That little girl is absolutely glowing with pride because her brother's power is straight up epic. But Ein's mom shuts him down fast. She chews him out for wrecking the target and smashing the very stones that were meant to help his allies. She reminds him he was only meant to hit the exact spot she pointed out, no ramping up into full demolition mode. At only 10 years old, Ein's magic is already wildly beyond everyone else's, and he's basically a walking super genius. But for all that raw power, he's got the real-life skills of some normal kid, and if he keeps slipping up like this, he's gonna turn into a full-on magical goofball. Ein's sister grabs their mom's hands and thanks her for pushing him forward, then declares she's training too next time. The boy belts out a shout-out to his sister, loud and proud, saying she's got her own one-of-a-kind skills and the kind of knowledge only she can bring. She leans in and tells him he's got the best magic, like to her, he's an absolute genius. So after everything that happened, you're really serious. He's the guy she dreams of becoming one day. As Ein stares at his sister in awe, let's sprint into his backstory for a quick detour. Roughly 10 years back, explorers stumbled on a brand new continent, and right there sits the city of Melia. Ein woke up as a baby. Yep, that was the moment he reincarnated into this medieval fantasy world. In his old life, nobody wanted him, and he got crushed by one struggle after another until it left him shattered. When his parents were still around, they'd pack the table and eat together. Then tragedy struck, and they were gone in a horrible accident. He blew his inheritance money on living it up as an IET, needing nobody and giving nothing back. And basically, he was haunting his own life like a ghost. Then he started doubting his whole lifestyle, like, was he really ruining everything? And before he could figure it out, bam, he died young. Reborn inside a baby's body, with a whole new life starting in the tiniest shell imaginable. It felt like it was clinging to the thin line between life and death. Back when Ein was living his old life, he was glued to novels about people getting yanked into other worlds, and now it was happening to him, and he literally couldn't process it. But because his new parents looked at him like he was their whole world, he was totally thrilled. And it hit them hard, they needed him like right now. The family's nanny and their maid, always right there, keeping everything running. The dark elf Lilina stepped in and nursed him back to life. His mom might be the most beautiful person ever, but she stood there as rigid as a board. Even before he could talk, his mom was training his dad, teaching him the basics of magic, starting with material transfer. His new dad was certain that casting the spell without a wand was flat out impossible. But the woman shot back that she could handle it solo, because ever since she was 6, she'd been doing it herself. Sure, he came from Usia, the magic capital, so it sounded easy, but his dad was from Runlisha, and the training was basically next to nothing. She basically snapped at him, told him to shut up and start training. Even though they were nobles, they were only low-ranking aristocrats, and Melia was basically a tiny village, just 70 people living there. And even then, the dad still couldn't land a single spell. He was ready to throw in the towel and rage hit him like a thunderclap. His mom was absolutely furious. Because it only cost 5 magical points and he still couldn't pull it off, she kept hyping him up, telling him not to let it crush him, and that a man should be driven to succeed. He leaned in and confessed, "I love you with everything I've got, and no one's ever going to beat me in that arena." Ain't always comes flying into the crib in his parents' room like he's ending the day with a bang. You'd think they'd keep it cool with a baby in the room. But now this story flips the script. He's got to survive every single brutally awkward moment. And EIN couldn't stop thinking about that material transfer thing he'd heard about earlier. He locked onto a teddy bear like it held the answer. He pushed at it with his mind, and after a hard squeeze of effort, the plush toy finally budged just a little. Then it hit him, some magical talent was hiding inside him. Bubbles of rage boiled inside him, right in that tiny, cute baby body. When his parents spotted something moving, he just lay there like he was asleep, acting the whole time. And every time his parents got all sweet and lovey-dovey, he was over there showing off his power, until one wrong move with his mana and bam, he'd pass out cold. It usually takes 2 or 3 days to bounce back, but since he's still a baby, he'd wipe himself out in just one. He even practiced redirecting things. When nobody was looking and emotions were running wild, he somehow teleported his poop straight into the potty, like he'd unlocked a magical escape. And the days kept flying by, until now when his mom finally promised she'd start measuring his magic. She stared in shock at the kid's insane magic power, 496 MP. He trained his magic like pump iron, every rep hit harder, and the results were finally exploding in his favor. Because he'd been carving through high-level magic for as long as he could remember. By the time he hit 10 years old, he already carried the most magical power of his whole generation. He even ran to his mom, Carla, and told her his mana dries up every 2 days, only for her to shrug it off as pure drama. The boy swore there was this thing called magical nausea, and he insisted his magic wasn't gone, it was just running out. Right in the middle of their training, a random dude crashed in like he owned the place. He told everyone his carriage died on the road while hauling goods. He leaned in and asked if he could borrow the stone golem they'd been grinding on in. The boy burst into action and whipped up a gola like it was nothing. He grabbed the oars lying around and hauled them out to help the guy out. That village is straight up thriving right now, all calm and cozy with around 200 people. They truly need farmers. More people means more mouths to feed, so the crops have to go in, but the whole place is just rocks everywhere, like the land won't cooperate. So the boy's been firing off his golem-making skills, turning them into muscle as he helps clean everything up. Because his golem could chug through endless years of work, fueled by all that insane magic. He can even conjure arms for any job at all, and that's why his mom was so impressed she basically praised him to the heavens. Golem's shape-shifting magic was sparked by a Gundam figure, and the way he pulled it off came straight from the wild, techie energy of the new internet age. Everyone in the village stared in awe at his golem skills, the kind that could haul heavy loads like it was nothing. But the kid hated being called young, even though that's exactly what he was, and deep down. He lived for the spotlight and the applause. Especially when you learn he used to be so clean, so decent, and weirdly down on his luck back in his past life. Living here feels unreal, and being in this family, man, it's pure good energy. Once the village finally levels up into a town, Aya's empire is going to stop and take notice, real recognition, the serious kind. Right now they're stuck living the F-rank life, but if they climb up, they could pull in way more members. Armed with what he knew from the modern world, he couldn't stop wondering just how far he could twist things before everything snapped. The very next day, his little sister barged in with the results from her medical exams. But she couldn't stop squirming as he stared at her. He gave her a quick head pat, then thanked her again like he meant it. Melia was a full year younger than him. She got hit with the kind of tragedy that shatters your whole world. Her parents died in a devastating accident. So En's parents took her in, loving her like she was truly their own. Even though she wasn't his by blood, he swore to himself he'd stand guard over her no matter what. Even with every nerve screaming at him, he somehow kept his instincts under control. And those two were always glued at the hip. Their dad, Mr. Keynes, is the one and only doctor in Melia, serving those border villages like a lifeline. Whenever the boy is with his mom, he's laser-focused on training, and anytime he can, he rushes to help his dad out at the clinic. He's usually tense around his new dad, but when medicine's involved, he's an absolute pro. He can spot what's wrong with a patient after just a few quick glances. The current patient had been struck by a venomous snake, and the danger was already creeping in. They told him they'd have to amputate his leg, and the poor guy absolutely lost it. He heard that and immediately started begging, "Please, tell me there's another way to save my leg," but the medical science here is still painfully basic. In this world, doctors aren't some flashy superhero type. Healing magic and potions get all the spotlight. But man, finding someone who can actually cast healing magic is brutal, and it costs a fortune. Wouldn't it be amazing if there were doctors out there who were both better and way cheaper? The boy realized the man's luck was brutal, losing just one leg instead of everything. That single bite almost cost him his life. The man finally caved, teamed up with the doctor, and lay down so he could get to work. Ein and Melia then snapped into position, ready to unleash their powers. The boy unleashed paralysis magic, trapping his foes in a frozen nightmare. And the girl finally crashed into a deep, dreamless sleep. Since there was still no anesthesia, they had to scramble a spell on the spot, anything to keep the pain and panic from wrecking the operation. Right after the surgery, the boy's dad swears that ever since he pitched uniforms at the office, post-op deaths have been dropping like crazy, like they're finally on a diet. Proud as anything, the boy tells everyone to keep the gear spotless, and he's already warmed up his ki, making sure every single person walks out of surgery feeling on top of the world. But even the dad had to admit, some of it felt way too wild for him. Amelia lunges in to back up her bro, firing back that the numbers don't lie and proving the gap is clear ever since they started using his advice. This boy had been begging everyone to open their eyes about modern medicine, but some days it felt like he was shouting at a brick wall. Right now, Melia's obsessed with soap, and at first, everyone thought it was totally bizarre. She was slinging free samples to everyone, daring them to try washing up with it. Once they started using it, it blasted grime away and left them feeling totally fresh. Women were totally blown away by how it zapped body odor, and because it cost way less than perfume. And they couldn't get enough of how it fizzed and bubbled the whole time they washed with it. Once those free samples hit the shelves, sales blasted upward faster than a rocket. Meanwhile, the boy leaned in and told his dad that if the world finally learned about proper sanitation and soap, Melia's economy would explode upward. Even his dad couldn't believe it. He was pumped that the boy's wild idea had taken off, but right now their village still didn't have a single specialty. So he sat down with his dad and pitched the idea to make soap, making it clear it wasn't just about cash, it was about getting everyone on the health train. Long before now, their planet got hit again and again with cholera and plague, because the hygiene was so bad it practically invited disaster. In some places, water is pure luxury, while Melia's out there soaking in it like it's nothing, so baths become a daily habit for her. This isn't just about farming to feed the village, it's how they stay healthy, spark the economy back to life, and if they want to level up, they've got to start doing it. I couldn't help but feel all mushy just watching him talk. A year later on Ein's birthday, and he tore into it like a storm, snagging a mountain of gifts. He shot his sister a huge thank you for busting her butt and pulling off that party. She wrapped her arms around him and swore she'd do anything for him. Even with his own sister climbing all over him, the boy still couldn't help but turn completely flustered every single time she pounced. The boy's mom ran a check on his magic, and boom, his magical power meter lit up with 600 MP. Amelia couldn't believe it. Back when he was just a teen, he still managed to grow nearly 100 MP in a single year. If he keeps grinding like this, he's gonna smash 999 MP, the top ever for a human, and become a legend, but for now, his skills are still pretty basic. His little sister leaned in and reminded him, with 600 total magic capacity, you're already leagues above the court mage. Their mom told him straight, magic can't carry you. Without real skill, he'll never climb to the top-tier mage level, and Amelia quickly chimed in that she'd heard Lady Marlene just pulled off rejuvenation magic like it was nothing. And their mom warned, this is gonna explode across the whole continent like wildfire. She told them the twist was a side effect. Once it kicked in, the person's gender changed, and she went from a dude over 70 straight into a 10-year-old girl. And she had zero clue what was going on in that old dude's head to pull all this off. With all this juicy gossip spreading fast, she remembered the Hawkwood clan's main family had sent a birthday gift for the boy. A set of enchanted glasses, loaded with magic, can kick on all kinds of functions, as long as you feed them the right channel. In that world, that stuff didn't come cheap, it was insanely pricey. And the boy had no idea his mom's parents were still keeping in contact with them. Back when he was a kid's parents' age, the A's Empire and the Runcha Kingdom were locked in a full-blown war, so yeah, a marriage between the two nations was out of the question. So his mom up and left that huge noble house, sprinting to be with his dad. This tale was whispered by Luina, the 116-year-old nanny who'd seen it all. His mom dropped the truth. The main family wanted to adopt Ein for shady reasons, and she's been sending regular letters just to keep them updated on how the boy's really doing. Amelia was buzzing with excitement because she knew this was her brother's shot at finally tying the two families together. Their mom told them flat out she'd only reveal his total magical power. Then the boy threw on the brand new glasses he'd just grabbed. And his mom just smiled and said, they look perfect on you. He strode over to his little sister, lined in, and asked what the heck was going on. While she's dripping sweat and blushing hard, he said those glasses made him look insanely handsome. The boy felt totally off, like these were just normal glasses until he tested them, and bam, they could tweak the magnification level, and somehow they could even let him see ghosts and spirits. Another feature was perspective. He could peer through clothes, slip through walls, and even see what lay beyond the ceiling. He was absolutely buzzing at the thought of finally uncovering what was hiding under those clothes. Now he was 100% sure those glasses would change everything. And honestly, if he skips them, he's basically robbing himself of the whole point. He snapped on the perspective like a switch, to finally find out what everyone was craving. He stared in shock at what was right in front of him, totally blown away. But his mom, yeah, that part was honestly kind of underwhelming. She couldn't shake the weird, nagging feeling that something just wasn't right. Amelia chased him down until she caught him red-handed, then snatched the glasses out of his hands like a kid grabbing candy at a store, and boom, she instantly knew what was going on. He tried to play it cool, claiming he hadn't even scratched the surface of what the glass could really do. But his sister wasn't having any of it, confessing she was absolutely mortified by what he just did. But now the perspective function was sealed up tight, locked down like a vault that won't budge. Watching her brother look utterly crushed, the girl leaned in and fired up his mood, offering, "If you really want, I'll let you see, no glasses." But the boy was like, nah, checking his sister wasn't worth it. What he truly craved was firing that function on the cutest girls in the village. That little girl was so mad her rage practically burst out of her. Smacked him across the face hard and he bolted off, crying like the world just ripped his heart out. I left the boy sitting there, frozen in place. I'm totally lost about what just happened, because the boy's day started way too early and hit like a sprint from the very first moment. People always said it felt like a blast when he jumped in and tackled the simple stuff himself. While I was out there helping others, he grabbed it and leveled up his gargoyle skills in one hell of a power-up. As he finally sealed the job, more people rushed in to help him. With just a few words and pure focus, he threw a spell that sent the gargoyle racing out to make deliveries anywhere it pleased. Besides using gargoyles to deliver messages and help out with field work, this village had one more claim to fame. A guy told Ein that his sister was seriously the sweetest because she helped him write a letter to that boy. He started raving about the girl's beauty, throwing out angel like it was gospel, but Ein wasn't buying a second of it. And yeah, not many commoners could even write, so Amelia stepped in and helped them. Their mom was brutally strict, so they were forced to learn a ton of stuff. But that afternoon was just ramping up, so there was no time for him to sink into his thoughts and get lost. With those new glasses on, he could see miles farther than anyone would have expected. He had no clue the situation would flip this hard. Then because of that one feature, he could ditch the classes he hated, soaring over the forests surrounding the city like a shadow in the sky. He clocked his dad and Dutton patrolling, trading jokes with a peasant woman as she snatched fresh fruit from the trees. Dutton, right there beside him, was a dwarf built like a tank, and people still swear the legend. He once dropped a saber-toothed tiger with a single punch. Ein's dad swung his sword, and it didn't even leave a single scratch on that beast. I decided to try a whole new setting on the glasses. He flipped the lattice function on, which lets him spot ghosts and spirits, things most people can't even see. He stared in disbelief at all the spirits packed there, but he was bummed out no ghosts showed up at all. Still, this kind of vision is kinda lame. It just dumps images on him, no real conversation, and no chatting with the spirits. Orthodox faith is the official religion of the IE Empire, and it's the biggest power on the whole continent, preaching that spirits are nothing but trouble. Still, in that world, every corner's packed with witches, wizards, humans, and demi-humans who secretly vibe with spirits, quietly, like it's a forbidden secret. Even with all that still hanging over him, Ain thought he was the peak of cool, smooth, elegant, and totally untouchable. He spotted a wind spirit, and this one felt wildly different from all the others. She stood right in front of his face, close enough to steal his breath. He's trying to get something out, and you can feel the words stuck in his chest. So she threw in the towel, then drifted off into the distance like she was slipping out of the world. Relief hit him hard. He didn't want her getting any closer, so he reached to shut off the perspective function. But in that last look, he spotted birds swooping in from the sky. Birdmen were closing in on Amelia, but Ein's instincts screamed, because they never usually drift into a silent place like this. He felt it in his gut, something was seriously off for this to happen. Stonebirds are colossal monsters that hunt humans and demi-humans alike, then tear into them like it's dinner. The boy felt it in his gut. If he didn't step in right now, Birdman was about to crash into total disaster, so he acted on that. The boy was itching to try the glasses' next trick, the automatic aim lock. He couldn't stand by and watch it happen right in front of his eyes, turning it on and ripping into its full power. He slipped into the evil eye's vision like it was calling his name, and sent a scorching beam straight at the stone bird. But the monster slammed up a barrier and turned the boy's attack aside. As soon as the boy was gone, everything in his wake still trembled. A stone bird could tear into the air and build a magical barrier like it was nothing, proving this wasn't any normal bird you'd ever see. And if he failed, the fallout wouldn't hit just him, it would drag everyone down with him. Even Amelia is about to plunge straight into deep trouble. He snapped his focus back into place, unleashed his piercing magic once more, and prayed with all his might that this time it would finally work. His glasses were hanging by a thread, so he didn't have many chances left. But once again the stone bird slammed in front of him, blocking his attack cold, and it kept creeping in right on the boy's heels. When the creature closed the distance to inches away, the boy realized it was still more than 30 meters away. That giant stone bird should have been history by now. The great stone bird is the largest bird ever, towering 18 to 50 meters tall, and it can slam magic barriers into place with a flick of its wings. It felt like forever since anyone last laid eyes on one of these bad boys. He glanced down and there was his dad and Dutton staring up at him, both of them wrecked with worry. The boy understood one thing clear as day: if they stepped wrong, something would gulp them up, and that was it for both of them. And Amelia, plus every single person he loved, was pulled into the same crushing fate. That bird came swooping straight for the village. No way our hero was going to sit back and let it happen. He was locked in on taking it down right then and there. He blasted his magical power at maximum strength, and his magic battled the stone bird's barrier until, at last, one of them cracked and crumbled. His glasses were about to fall off, but the boy just clenched his teeth and pushed through for a little longer. He tore right through the bird's shield, and nailed it dead on like he could read the future. Then the giant bird nose-dove straight out of the sky, and once he swallowed it, a wave of pure relief crashed over him. While he bragged to himself, his eyelids started to droop, and then he collapsed. He crashed into the nearby river, helpless on the spot. No swim, no flight, then every last ounce of his magic quit on him. He fought to stay afloat, but the waves kept trying to steal him. But the water yanked him under, trapping him there helpless, just waiting for someone to come pull him out. His dad launched himself into the water. He yanked the boy out of the water just in time, dragging him back from the brink and saving his life. He crushed him in a tight hug and told him, "You're safe now." His dad swore he'd pull him out of there, no matter what it took. Because the boy was his prized treasure, the one thing he'd never let go of. The man clutched him tight, pulling him in close like he wasn't letting go, and hurled him straight at the old guy waiting on the riverbank, who leaned in and told the kid he absolutely crushed it. Staring at his dad in the river, the boy panicked hard. Just a bit farther down, a massive waterfall roared into view, dwarfing everything around it. If that man landed the hit, it was instant game over. The moment he clocked it, panic detonated in his chest. He refused to let that happen. He stared at his dad, already worn down, barely holding on, running out of strength. He still remembered that smile right there on his face when he yanked him out of the water. That was the last time the boy would ever see his dad. He could have ditched him in the river and vanished, but he didn't. That's the real heart of a true man, the boy thought, staring in awe. Then out of nowhere, a mysterious shadow slipped in behind Eind, and it somehow made his sadness hit even harder. To everyone's shock, a wind spirit shot down like a bolt of lightning and yanked the boy's dad out of the water. The kid's dad got saved by a tiny spirit, pure sylph, set free as long as the wind keeps on blowing. She skipped class and stumbled onto Eind's glasses, and once she saw him blow the bird away with that laser, curiosity lit a fire in her chest. Then she spotted the guy who saved Megan, and he was seconds from getting thrown over that waterfall. So she shot in out of nowhere and snatched him out of danger. Two birdmen swooped in to talk, Elder Eigels on one side, Elder King Fall on the other, aiming right at the little spirit. She fired back, saying she doesn't do dates, she doesn't sell paintings, and nobody should come to her asking anything about religion. When she finally leaned in and stared hard, the little one gasped. Those weren't strangers at all, they were the birdmen they'd saved. The Eagles demanded she hand that human over to them and leave right now. Curious, she leaned in and demanded, "So, are you guys planning to eat the boy?" They promised they'd de-haul him right back to the village and repay that debt themselves. Without even pausing, she pushed the boy into their hands, and just like that, they carried both of them home. He was absolutely pumped because his dad was right there with him too. He darted back into bed, thanking the universe over and over that his dad was still alive. His little sister, tucked under the covers, said two birdmen swooped in and carried them home, and now she couldn't stop smiling because they were safe. From far away, the little girl watched the birdmen keep their word, and even bring the boy's glasses back. Now she could keep watching, but it felt super strange. Why were the two brothers suddenly crowding each other when the room had way more beds? While she talked to her sister, Ein blurted out that the Birdman totally blew his mind. Then the guy handed him a Birdman set that supercharged him with strength and let him fly. They were asking if they could swing by that village again, because they never got the chance to properly thank him the first time. Getting crowned a hero while Birdman took you into the sky, that was the ultimate flex. While she listened, a harsh buzz of noise spilled out from her parents' room. Amelia couldn't stop wondering whether they were really testing their fighting skills or just sharpening them. She said Mom's still got moves that are seriously epic even now. Still, she's ridiculously stronger, and she's crazy about their dad. While she thought they were just trading punches, the boy lined in and spilled what was really happening. Time just whizzed by, and Sylph kept staring as the boy used those glasses, until her excitement finally fizzled out. Ain kept hammering his training, leveling up his attacks one brutal rep at a time, this time going full force on a magical spear strike. But no matter how hard he tried, his manners kept slipping out of his control, making the power spread so far it got way out of control. With every spell Sylph hurled, she erupted in cheers for the boy's crazy power. Even with every ounce of effort he threw at it, the finish line still felt miles away. He stayed right on the Birdmen's heels. And speaking of that, Birdmen swooped in and told the boy they were ready to spend another day with him. They looked totally geared up to start hunting. That boy was buzzing with excitement, and he took off right alongside them. Sylph didn't skip a single step, he just rolled right behind them, because everyone knows those wild birds sometimes go after humans, and they couldn't afford to be caught off guard. Fowl leaned in and told the boy they were almost at the stone bird's nest, then demanded, "You ready?" The pumped-up boy grinned at the two bird men beside him. Those stone birds wouldn't stand a chance. While they bragged about their brand-new powers, the birdmen had zero chance. Sylph just sat back and listened in silence. She couldn't believe it, those eggs were so huge they looked unreal. Of birds slicing through the sky, soaring higher with every beat of their wings. While she was sneaking around, eyes sharp and heart racing, the boy readied himself, gripping the set he just got from the birdmen. He dressed up like a bird to fight birds, and the whole thing was honestly hilarious. Sylph giggled at the chaos, and right as the three charged in, the narrator of this epic battle was none other than her. Ein's glasses started blazing with light, like they were hyped up for something big. He snapped on his super lightning vision, and the boy fired up his crew like, "Go right now." Eagles kept shouting for a foul, then yelled at them to wait up. One of the birdmen ripped into an all-out attack. A brutal feather barrage tore through the field, straight up hitting their own team too. So the Eagles couldn't afford to let Fowl and Iron take a hit. He snapped his self-shield into place and shielded them all. And that little girl's eyes went wide as spirit after spirit arrived to help. She couldn't sit this one out, she had to jump in no matter what. So she shot in front of the boy, ready to help too. And she couldn't stop smiling as she snagged a pristine white feather from the stone birds. Again, Ain swore she heard a voice calling from somewhere beyond, because the spirits didn't always show themselves for her to see. But there's no time to slow down, this birdman is in deep trouble, and he's still sprinting straight at the enemy. Within seconds it happened. With just a few brutal hits, the fight was basically already finished. Then Iglo swore he'd pin him down while the boy finished the job. Then the birdman snapped into focus and demanded strength from the god of the wind spirits. A hurricane started to churn and twist, building power like it had a plan. A tiny Sylph was freaking out, fully convinced the blast would blow her clean away. But the moment she saw Eind gripping a massive boulder like it weighed nothing, her shock hit her like a punch. She even started to suspect he was cheating, because his strength felt downright unreal. He unleashed his legit space-time magic, and blasted a deadly meteor at the enemy. It slammed into the stone bird dead center, and just like that, the battle was over. And as he vanished, the little girl erupted in cheers, his heart bursting with pure joy. They dragged him back to his village, yanking him out of everything he knew. The birdmen handed him a magical leather pouch that can shrink whatever he stuffs inside. And once he joined the Hunters Guild, they slapped him with a brutal 70% tax. But it's still incredibly valuable. Somehow, he managed to fix his glasses. Fowl recalled the boy confessing he was hooked on spiritual magic, and he thrust a feather into the other guy's hands, one of those gigantic spiritual bird feathers that shifts color with whoever holds it, and can instantly sniff out whether a spirit's good or pure danger. Sylph watched the whole thing unfold and couldn't stop wondering, did he really have a stronger aura than the birdmen? The second he grabbed it, it blazed gold. Fallen Eagles got completely rocked by the raw power blasting out of the wind spirit. Sylph couldn't shake the feeling that Ain might not have the kind of real connection with her she was hoping for. Then the birdmen lined in and spilled the truth. There's only one human on Earth who could pull off something like that. Sylph flashed the boy a heartfelt wave and said goodbye, praying his spiritual powers would rocket him to new places. The boy was on the hunt for a missing someone, and every time he listened, more voices clawed out from the shadows. But honestly, today was a straight-up victory for him. As night crept in, he was utterly wiped out. He caught the noises again, whipped his gaze over, then saw nothing at all. Turns out Sylph was just borrowing one of those feathers for a little while. Because he never said no, she decided it meant go, and she ran with it. When she's around that boy, everything's a ride with him, and she's 100% sure boredom will never stand a chance. Kicked off the Veneria Festival's beauty contest with a bang. The host pumped up the final contestant in the beauty division, the one everyone called the hottest face on the whole new continent. Carla Kleinsan, of all people. The competition ripped itself into two groups, and Melia was already the one to beat, standing front and center among the teens. And the 18-plus crowd where Carla Klin basically ruled the whole competition like a full-on queen. And get this, there was an all-ages Division 2, with Luina, the house's wet nurse, stepping up as the top contender. Clean was practically vibrating with joy just to be sitting at this level, married or not, because she was already creeping toward 30. But with looks like hers, age is just a rumor, especially for a quarter elf who still has the energy of someone living like they're 20. The man kept shouting that it was all thanks to Mayor Unibasan of Floria's desperate plea. Everyone flocked to the Veneria Festival, ready to crown the most beautiful soul on the brand new continent. Ain's dad told his wife, chill out. Sure that the second she stepped in, she'd snatch that win. Because she's not just the most beautiful woman on the continent, she's the prettiest in the entire universe. Ain just kicked back and watched from the shadows as the two drew closer. Caught in his own thoughts, he suddenly snapped back to reality. Those teen contests were about to begin, and his mind raced. Is his sister ready? He shot over to make sure she was okay, stunned to realize she hadn't even so much as changed yet. She snapped that the outfit she was forced to wear was beyond embarrassing. The boy nudged her, yelling to hurry up. Her turn was about to slam down any second. And honestly, there's no way he'd ever have the guts to face a crowd that big. But she didn't have to sweat at all. Because she's the most beautiful woman not only on the continent, she's got the whole universe beat. She used to cringe at her dad's words, but now she's fully locked in, straight up vibing with everything he says. Tears welled up in her eyes when her brother called her beautiful. She swore she'd go all in for him, then wrapped him up in the tightest hug like she'd never let go. Two other competitors barreled in and slammed him into a group hug, begging the boy to cheer for them too, checking if their outfits were straight up on point. Without skipping a beat, he pumped them up and yelled that their outfits were straight up fire. Amelia clocked what was happening and shouted, "Hey, cheer for me too." All three girls were going all in to win Ain's support, and the race between them was getting intense. But the moment the contest was about to kick off was right around the corner. And the first contestant, Sabriaka Akaven Jane, was already swaggering onto the stage, ready to steal the spotlight while the boy's dad waited there, watching him like a proud shadow. The girl stepping up was Count Jane's niece, and she was straight up stunning, no exaggeration. On stage, she lit up the room and demanded they all vote for her, and stared, completely stunned by the gorgeous girls from other cities, but before she could even catch her breath, the next contestant was already charging toward her. A total showstopper from Melia, gorgeous, incredible, and impossible to ignore. Amelia marched onto the stage, stammering her name as embarrassment shook her to the bone. Everybody's jaw dropped at the sheer beauty of that sweet village girl, and I couldn't help but stare at just how massive her earbags were. Even Ain couldn't deny it, those outfits were absolutely next level. But he forced himself to stay sharp because he couldn't let his instincts steer the wheel. She introduced herself with a grin, telling everyone she's from Melia, and that she absolutely loves the village, the lakes, and every bit of that wild, beautiful nature. But the one thing she loves most, more than anything, are her incredible dad, mom, and brother. She kept gushing praise at her brother, calling him unbelievably talented, saying he always has the village in his heart, and stressing that he's genuinely kind. He's always calm and totally passionate when he teaches her magic, and honestly, he looks handsome whether he's wearing those glasses or not. She was already emotional when she swore, no cap, he's amazing, and the moment she said it, you could tell she meant, I love him. She screamed for her brother, and the second he heard it, his face flushed crimson like a tomato. He thanked her, still drowning in embarrassment, and the crowd just stood there, utterly baffled by what they'd witnessed. But man, her cuteness sweeps in and steals the votes. Meanwhile, some girls were gnawing at their nails, furious over Melia. Aind and his dad decided to kick back, grab some food, and soak in the calm before the results dropped. While I wandered deeper into those alleys, I caught two girls mid-chat, laughing and talking like they owned the place. She told the other girl, "I warned you already, throw out the votes for the other competitors." And his dad clocked it instantly. The girl was pure demon, like somebody shipped her in from another continent. That demon continent sits south of Ussia, an unforgiving wasteland of deserts and pure bad energy. And the demi-humans, they are born with a magic crystal stamped on their foreheads, storing power inside. People call them demons, and way too many of them get thrown into slavery. The girl snapped at her slave, "Move, if you don't, the results get announced," and the demon nearly panicked because there were way too many eyes around. With a whip clutched in her fist, she barked orders at the slave, "Do exactly what I say, nothing more." Right when she was about to slash the demon, the boy's dad burst in front of her like he'd been waiting for that exact moment. Sabria lined in and demanded, "So what are you doing?" And the man snapped that this kind of behavior from the account's family was totally, 100% unacceptable, thumping his chest and roaring that she was his slave. Ein snatched it up and immediately realized it was nothing but padding, just a fake to pretend they had something they didn't. All of it lit a fuse in her. She snapped that the slave was fired and they should haul her off. Then it's just the father and son staring at that girl, totally stuck, like, what are they even supposed to do with her? As they argued over the slave's fate, chaos erupted at the sound of the boy's mom's name. People were hyping up 3 women from the same family, because they weren't just competing, they swept every division and took it all. While the boy and his dad were still trading stories, the competition finale wrapped up. Melia's village swept the day and took everything. Everyone was dying to know the clean family secret behind how they stayed so effortlessly stunning. And thanks to that interview, the soap absolutely flew off the shelves, sold like hotcakes, because the 3 hype machines promised it was the real foundation of beauty. Melia's new settlers exploded in number, already smashing past 200, and the village is so close to leveling up into a town it feels inevitable. Now he's 12 years old, and his total mana is climbing past 700. Then another stunning woman slipped into the Klain family. The demon slave Mithali they managed to rescue before everything went down. Starting today, she's stepping into her new life as a maid. She confessed that her hobbies are basically curses. She researches springs and fires, and yeah, she's cute, but her vibe is way too dark. Ein's mom snapped, "Catch up on your studies," and the boy shot back, "But I thought demons can't use magic." She said demons can't learn magic because it siphons the power right out of their crystal cores. Then she pointed out that witchcraft doesn't drain their magic at all. In that country, people shrug it off as superstition, and no one takes its effects seriously at all. Ein's dad straight up said that no matter what came next, she'd never be treated like a slave in their house. So she better calm down while she's there. The demon shot back that for the master who saved her, she'd do anything, anything at all. And she'd pour her whole heart into the night service too. The man of the house clocked his wife's reaction instantly, and told him that just doing her maid work was more than enough. She promised she'd do her absolute best as a housemaiden for the night service too. She wouldn't let it go, she kept pressing until she demanded her reward for giving everything to her work. The chance to meet the master after dark. I couldn't believe how pushy she was getting, and then I clocked it. His mom was seconds away from snapping. The boy's dad yanked his voice up and called his mom over right then. And then he crashed his lips into hers, and swore he'd never touch a mistress, and that he wouldn't lay a finger on any servant or slave. Caney swore that, besides his wife, there wasn't a single woman in the world who even stood a chance in his heart. Ian thought the moment was sweet, but his heart sank knowing the kids had been forced to watch it with their parents right there. And ever since then, Mithili's been grinding nonstop. But you can't help noticing, she's always swaying like the room can't control her. Every time the boy's dad came striding by, Mithali pushed herself to catch his eye. And honestly, Caney isn't just charming, he's a full-on heartbreaker. No matter what she does, he flat out ignores her like she's invisible. Vial gripped tight in her hand, she decided, if she couldn't steal what she wanted, she'd manufacture her own luck and force the outcome. Then Ein bounced over to train with his mom and sister. While they were vibing, he suddenly heard a voice screaming that his house was in serious trouble. He could hear the panic shaking through that whisper, like it was gripping him tight. And then bam, this strange feeling slammed straight into his chest. He sprinted straight to his house, desperate to find out what chaos was unfolding. As soon as he closed in, a shock of a scene blasted into his senses and left him utterly stunned. The entire house was engulfed in fire, roaring as it turned to flames. Mythology lay sprawled across Kane's chest, blazing around him like fire had swallowed the room whole. Sylph was panicking hard over her friend, and she couldn't keep it together by herself. So she slammed the call and the squad answered, then she screamed for everyone to rush in and save the humans trapped inside that raging inferno, and they all just shot back, why should we care? And the little one pleaded, swearing she had a real bond with the humans living inside that house. And just like that, the Crocodile Tears operation saved their friend, and it was a complete knockout. Everyone trailed that little one straight to Ein's place. In front of that blazing house, Ein was fighting to stay calm. From his point of view, Datin and Rowena were long gone, out of the village, away from everything and nowhere to be seen. But his dad and Mathali were still trapped inside, and just seconds later his mom exploded out of the room, screaming nonstop about what his dad was going through. And Amelia was completely losing her mind. Then he told his brother, we've got to go find Mom now. But he told them to let their mom take over the rescue of their dad in Mathali. He warned them the flames would leap and they'd better be ready, because once it all started, everything could go totally wild. He told her to stay on edge by the mansion and start casting healing magic the moment anyone got burned. And he'd fix his eyes on one thing, smothering that fire before it ruins everything. The moment he said that, fear slammed into her like a brick. But he swore it had to be done. Someone had to rein in those flames and keep them from devouring the nearby houses, so he grabbed her trust and promised he'd do whatever it took. She understood right away, then swore she'd always be there for him, backing him no matter what. He yanked his bird cloak on and launched into the sky. They realized that conjuring rain through weather manipulation would take forever. Now it was a mad sprint against the clock. So the smartest play was to slam together a water golem fast. A full-on water dragon. He barked an order to the water dragon, and it shot straight toward the house like a missile. Everyone nearby went wide-eyed and gaped as that massive water dragon barreled straight toward them. They rolled up in about 5 minutes, like a fire truck racing to a call. He shot his sister a quick question, did everybody make it out, and she flashed him a solid thumbs up. He unleashed his dragon, to unleash a roaring blast of water and smash the flames out cold. As soon as the flames died, the whole crowd erupted in cheers and piled praise on the boy for his insanely epic rescue. His little sister barreled toward him and wrapped him in a hug, tears pouring down her cheeks. She told him he was the town's hero and that she'd always believed he'd rise. He snapped that she was overdoing it since he'd already put out the fire. That water blast hit with way too much force, and the house was basically wiped out. He started blaming himself, raging at the fact he couldn't rein in his own magic. While the girl tried to lift his spirits, someone else barged in and told him, don't stress it. So everyone stepped in to rebuild the house, because those boys' heroic acts lit the spark and made it happen. He was so stunned he couldn't even get the words out. Because smashing the house was a total accident, it turns out that oops is exactly what they call a lucky break. But while he drifted through the chatter, one thought hit him hard. His dad was still trapped inside. Then Amelia whipped her finger and pointed straight to where they were. When he walked in, he saw his dad sprawled on the bed with Mithali straddling him, while his mom just sat there, watching in silence. He sat there, stunned, begging himself to figure out what the heck was going on. It shot out of the house and straight into the yard on its own. While Ain was scrambling to make sense of, a girl suddenly appeared and announced that the wind spirits had swooped in, carried the bed, and saved them. Sue and the Adona tribe live for spirit worship, and somehow, she's got that same spirit user vibe burning in her too. The birdmen had already told him about the wind spirit, then showed him how they saved his dad at the waterfall. Since they saved him twice, the boy had no choice. He had to show that spirit some real gratitude somehow. But in Melia, spirits are treated like pure evil, so pulling that off in the open could get you shut down fast. Once everyone was safe, Sylph seized the opening like a pro, diving in to grab one more weird little magical tool for herself, total opportunist energy. After all that chaos, they slammed to a stop at the mansion of the city's vice mayor, Save Us Sand, because of course they would. 3 days later, Ankani and Mithili are still out cold, snoozing like nothing in the world could wake them. Turns out they popped some insanely strong sleeping meds. Meanwhile, Ein's mom was totally losing control, slinging together all kinds of meals for her husband like it was second nature, desperately hunting for anything that could jolt him awake faster than a TikTok dance challenge. Amelia rushed up to her brother and asked if Mom was okay, and he told her he totally understood why she was acting so frantic. It looked like a double drag-up play was about to explode. Out of nowhere, his sister snapped her head around and said, "If I'm gonna pull something wild, I'm doing it with you." I'm telling her to calm down because they've got to lock in and figure out what sparked that fire. After that, he and Amelia went their separate ways, hunting clues and digging deeper into the mystery. And then boom, the two woke up from their legendary nap, fully charged and ready to go. After their chat, they basically warned Mythali. People had spotted her grabbing ingredients for that sleeping potion, and they'd also seen her buy a mountain of firewood. Yeah, there's so much circumstantial proof here that any detective would be absolutely thrilled. She had to spill the tea, there was no other way. She lit the mansion on fire, and she forced Kane to gulp coffee laced with herbs to knock him out, hauled him to bed, stripped him bare, set him ablaze, and then drank the coffee herself. She crawled into bed beside him, desperate to stay together even in heaven. Carla warned, "Brace yourself, because the fallout from my actions is coming." Arson's burning their master's house in a wild bid to drag him up to heaven, and now she's staring down 3 days of first-degree torture before they finally execute him. That's just how Aya's empire plays it, and after that, what's left of her will be hauled around the city and put on display, right there for every future troublemaker to see. Carla's eyes burned as she finished the threat. She wasn't about to let her go drag up in peace. Somewhat awkwardly, Caney snapped that he wished the slave could have dodged that brutal torture altogether. And maybe the execution could hurt a little less, so he could still show mercy to someone like her. But Carla snapped back, "Yeah, he's insanely kind, but he has to wake up and realize he's got the power of the courts, because if he starts going easy on real criminals, he's going to ruin everything. If things keep going like this, that city's public order is about to crash hard. If they tag him as a soft lord, his authority is going to take a brutal hit and cause serious trouble. Soon the city's order would start to crack, and crime would explode sky-high. And there's this looming fear: what if criminals from other cities start showing up at their door? Yeah, they could *V handled it the right way under the law, but they refused to cheer on that kind of brutality. Then it hit me brilliantly. I dodged the whole mess before it could swallow me up." He leaned in and asked if he could turn mythology into the next test subject. Canny had been digging into smallpox for a while, the kind of disease that kills nearly half the people who catch it, and even surviving doesn't save you, because the side effects are brutal enough that they straight up call it the devil's disease. To erase smallpox from his country, the same disease that stole his parents, he threw himself into the study of medicine. His dad died in brutal shape, and his mom barely clung to life, leaving her covered in scars. After everything fell apart and her heart shattered from losing him, she spiraled, destroying her own chances before she could even try. And that's why wiping out smallpox became the mission she lived and breathed for. As he told Ein, determination blazed in his eyes like a raging sunrise. And the boy knew this world's smallpox would hit just like the one he'd survived before. He could totally whip up a vaccine, then use it to power his whole idea. With mythology in his pocket, he could keep digging for a cure, then throw her straight into the lab as the test subject. Criminals don't usually shy away from danger. Some will sign up as medical test subjects, and if they pull it off, they walk out with a free pass for their crimes. And after all, the boy figured the city's people would be totally fine with it. So Kenny leaned in and asked Mythali if she was in on the idea, and Mythali didn't hesitate for even a second. Tears streamed down her face as she blurted, "I can't believe they gave me such a kind punishment for all my screw-ups. I'm genuinely grateful." Caney fired off a sincere thank you to his wife for actually weighing his thoughts on the whole mess. But she didn't look even a little excited. And then he just said, "If this helps me find the cure, I'll blow up worldwide." While the vaccine takes its sweet time, Mythali's trapped as a test subject for a whole decade, but if this finally works, she walks away with a free pass. In a heated chat with the vice mayor and locals, they started floating the idea of locking her up right then and there. But because Caney and the crew were so kind, they shut that plan down for them. So Carla snapped together a spell on the demon girl, meaning if she ever tried to pull that stunt again, her nail would start going blue, then once it hit fully blue, boom, she'd instantly transform into a frog. So yeah, no funny business allowed. Mythali went all in, claiming this would be a real loyalty test for her master. He rushed over to check the foot-powered grain machine he and Datton built, and when he saw it was working perfectly, he practically exploded with joy. Down in Klane's basement, they were whipping up experiments and inventions like it was flat-out cheating. As everything grows fast, danger follows right behind, and this kid had already face-planted a bunch of times in construction sim games back in his old world. He looked his dad in the eye and swore the vaccine testing tools were locked down tight so they could finally launch the whole operation. But Caney still wore that heavy, downcast look on his face. His son clocked it instantly and blurted, "We're saving hundreds of thousands, no matter what it takes." That pep talk hit like electricity, and Caney suddenly felt his energy surge. But the boy couldn't recall a thing about smallpox, because in his home world it had been wiped out completely. He suddenly remembered they tested the vaccine on an animal first. But his brain blanked out, so he burst into brainstorming to figure it out. He was pacing in his thoughts when, bam, he collided with Elena, who dropped a heartfelt apology for getting lost in her own thoughts. He even apologized because his brain was totally gone, like he didn't even know where he was. His politeness totally won her over. Then she slammed into him and squeezed so hard he could barely breathe. But honestly, being treated like her little brother made him feel weirdly awkward. He zoned out in his own head, and the weird place sent a sudden thought. It reminded him of a cow. Then it hit him like a light bulb exploding in his brain, and he just knew that was the move. He flashed her a quick thank you, then tore off like his life depended on it. He shot off, convinced that bovine smallpox was just a cow skin disease, something that could jump to humans, but only to give them mild symptoms. He burst into the village of Hain, expecting sickness everywhere, then froze when he realized not a single person there had caught smallpox. This village sits up in the highlands north of Melia, where the milk flows like gold, and everyone there lives and breathes one thing: raising cows. Before they ever crossed onto this continent, folks in Ushia swore by a saying, if you caught bovine smallpox, you wouldn't catch the real smallpox. A few days back, this medicine-obsessed guy rolled in, declared the whole thing was just superstition, and everyone absolutely cooked him for it. And yeah, that's exactly what the boy figured, too. People who catch bovine smallpox don't just survive it, they actually build up protection against smallpox, because the two are close enough that your body handles it like it's the same fight, like it is on Earth. He bolted back to his dad with the news, and his dad just nodded like, yeah, that checks out. He bolted off for Hain immediately, and ordered his son to go find Mithali. He had to get her ready for the experiment, so he told him, tell her to stop hanging out with the cows, she could catch bovine smallpox. With the townspeople pitching in to build a brand new mansion. They had horses and cows, and somehow, the myths were basically running the show over those cows. With every back-and-forth trip between Hain and Melia, the boy kept getting shorter. This world smallpox and Earth smallpox are practically twins, same deadly story, just different places. So if they unleashed the bovine smallpox virus, they could have crushed the smallpox virus for good. With Mithali in the testing lab, they leaned in and demanded, are you really sure about this? They finally reached the very last stage, no turning back now. The vaccine they brewed from those bovine smallpox blisters was moments away from being injected, step by step, dose by dose, rising over the next few weeks. And today her fate was sealed. Someone was about to unleash the smallpox virus inside her. With the vaccine her dad cooked up, that demon slave could finally crank out enough antibodies to make it count. Mithali shot back that she was ready, no hesitation, no doubt, and no turning back. Because this experiment is built to save lives across the whole world. And if it's for her master, she's all in, she'll stake her life without hesitation. Keynes didn't react at all. Just said he'd start the test by kicking it off. The boy said that because infection was a real threat, they'd have to lock her away and watch her nonstop. But everybody was in full shock. When Kenny admitted he'd need to be isolated too. Because he got hit with an even nastier accident, he was contaminated with the smallpox virus too. He told them his research had him injecting himself with the same vaccine, but he still hadn't proven it actually worked. Carla was spiraling, yelling at him, why would you do something this reckless? And her husband swore it would work, so he straight up jabbed the smallpox vaccine into mythology. So he couldn't just rely on others, he had to throw his own body into the experiment too, because even one extra person means clinical trials are non-negotiable. Because he's hell-bent on blasting this demon virus out of the world ASAP. And he realized his mom could see just how relentless his dad was. To finally end the sickness that keeps ruining lives, he's betting his own life on it. And he might not even be the right test subject, and there's no guarantee the smallpox vaccine will actually work. If he can help his dad, he's all in, no hesitation. Then he blurts out that he wants to volunteer for the smallpox vaccination too. 6 months vanished in the blink of an eye since the tests, and now Ian's 13th birthday was finally here, rolling in like the start of something huge. Time rumbled by and somehow neither of them caught smallpox, so the whole experiment basically pulled off a perfect win. Mythali City finally owned up to her worth. She got cleared, no questions asked, but that cursed nail is still stuck on her finger. Carla said the moment they mentioned volunteering, her soul practically flew right out of her body. They shoot apologies at her, begging forgiveness for dragging her through all of that. And Kane said the exact thing that lit the fuse in her. With Ein's wild ideas and non-stop support fueling him, she'll be right there for him every time he needs her. She shoots him a heartfelt thank you like her whole soul is grateful. Even with the vaccine trials landing perfectly, the virus isn't going to disappear overnight, because the truth hits the same way soap did. One breakthrough changes everything. That vaccine his dad risked everything for isn't just a shot, it's the kind of cure that will save a whole mountain of lives in the future. For Ain, who once felt totally useless, everything's flipped. Now he's making a real difference for humanity, and after cracking soap, he's already cooking up what's next, like mouthwash, or maybe even a disinfectant spray. A few days later, on a holiday break, a pack of kids set out to explore the mind-blowing super ruins of an ancient magical civilization. They showed up to dig into those ancient ruins that have been standing for thousands of years. They planned to track down magical relics left behind by that super ancient civilization. But just as the boy was riding high on hope, an expedition member snapped the dream in half, saying it was probably never happening, because if an ancient civilization really existed, everyone would have already unearthed its books and magic gear, and even if there was something, it would be from a civilization far older than anything they could imagine. He ranted about every wild theory and superstition he'd ever heard about the past, insisting that if it really happened, there had to be proof left behind. The settlers on that brand new continent already stumbled on those ruins, and the adults even tore through the inside, but somehow they came up empty. But because the search was half-baked and there's zero budget, AIND is clinging to hope like it's the last lifeline. Amelia clings to him and whispers that it's beautiful the way guys never stop dreaming. A wave of shyness hit him like a sudden cold breeze. But just like that, some guy materialized behind him and swore he believed they had a shot at finding something there too. It was Conan of Zagretor Arthur, the governor of the Northeastern Territory on the new continent and the second son of Marquis Arthur. Amelia drops a compliment on him, and he instantly turns beet red, completely flustered by her words, leaving him mortified and completely, hopelessly smitten with her. So he did it to rake in even more compliments. He tackles him into a hug and starts calling him his best bud. Conan set up that expedition to push in closer to Amelia. He tries to connect with, by telling him he might become the best friend he never had, and maybe even feel like family, like a brother. They kept raining compliments on the boy until he finally cracked and said, "If I were a girl, I'd totally date you." Conan's the oldest and his family outranks the other two, so they've been walking on eggshells with every word they say. Meanwhile, Surt was born into a noble line, so the second his family's status climbed above the clans, his whole attitude snapped into place. That basically screams everything about who he really is. Meanwhile, he snapped orders at his demon slave, Keen, demanding she move even faster. So if he's got beast blood in his veins, he should be tearing around at full speed. He spat straight in the little demon slave's face. But a magic spell swooped in and spared him from the humiliation. Kane couldn't process what had just hit him, so Ein snapped a magical barrier into place to shield him. And Surt clocked exactly what he was doing. He demanded to know whether he'd messed with things, and told him to mind his own business, because that was the whole slave discipline routine. Conan placed a hand on his shoulder and told him, "Even if you're a slave, you're still a person, got it?" Surt kept cursing up a storm, then froze when he spotted Conan behind him, and he immediately turned bashful. He shot an apology, promised he'd be way more careful starting now. Honestly, that was a smart play. For helping someone like him, which was honestly pretty awesome. And just shrugged it off, telling him to let the golem haul all that luggage. Then he leaned in and ordered Mia, the other slave, to drop her belongings and hand them straight to the golem. Mia served as Conan's sidekick, and she was done with his attitude, telling him there was absolutely no need for it. He said there wasn't really any danger, because yeah, they called it exploration, but it felt more like they were just running around playing tag. And he couldn't stop worrying 6 people in a single golem, all at once, would that even hold up? He told me they hadn't run into a single monster yet, and honestly, that felt like a huge win. It felt like they basically wiped out almost all the monsters in the last inspection, and honestly, that's kinda sus. But Conan couldn't help thinking, Amelia has to see me in action, and honestly, that desire makes perfect sense. I checked the area and saw barely any real guardians around, so Conan basically had no one to stop him from showing off. Surt's stomach flipped the moment he caught sight of that, like, come on, dude. Meanwhile, Conan was totally hyped about the tiny monsters that suddenly burst into view. But they looked more like tasty snacks for the biggest monsters around. And when she did, those stone birds paled in comparison, like they couldn't even compete with what she was facing. This ending was so anticlimactic it almost made me laugh, like, wait, that's it. And honestly, only the golem could deal with those little monsters. But Conan suddenly slid in front of him and told him, it's all good. He demanded a rush of support magic. To get thrown at him, classic trick, and it hits like a sucker punch. Ain couldn't wait to let him finally show off. Amelia snapped her defense magic toward him, sealing him in a protective shield. With the rest of the crew, the boy's heart spun out of control as Amelia's love hit him like lightning. And then he was so pumped he straight up declared, I'm invincible. He barreled straight at the creatures, brimming with pure energy and ready for whatever came next. He unleashed the last move, Rock Slash, and the hero's supreme whirlwind. That sounds so legendary it makes your chest thump. Even Aimless was stunned, because with Conan's support magic powering them up, they tore right through their enemies. Then this sneaky monster lunged at Conan from behind, catching him completely off guard. The boy scrambled to warn him, but it was already too late. So he had to slam down another invisible barrier, and yeah, it was totally clutch. He told Conan this was his moment because the enemy was distracted, so Conan made his move. Then he lunged forward and smashed the creature before it could react. He just made them all drop to their knees, pure, unstoppable flex. Tucked behind the stone golems, Surt kept grinning like, this was totally expected of Conan, obviously. Amelia grilled her brother, asking if it was him who helped Conan in the middle of that fight, and he admitted, yeah, it was. She lit up, straight up saying it was exactly the kind of thing he was expected to pull off. Blushing hard, she admitted it was him. Her heart had picked him, and honestly, it's kinda adorable. But right when the conversation was heating up, Conan blurted that they'd finally arrived, and the whole call got cut off. The throne room sat right ahead of them, towering and legendary like something ripped straight out of myth. Conan grinned and said it felt amazing to get there after all those battles, yet our protagonists knew, deep down, they were only fighting weak enemies. With fear gnawing at him, Surtz told them, we nailed our goal, now we bounce. As he kept talking, I clocked the fear taking over so hard he looked like he was about to piss himself. Honestly, it was hilarious. But then his idol hit him with it, since they're here already, they've gotta sweep the place again. Then he slid right onto the throne, and Surt was like, bro, this throne fits you perfectly. Because after everything, he was dripping pure king energy, no cap. Surt barked orders at his slave to scour every inch of the place like she was hunting stains, and right as she started to obey, Ain yanked her attention and called her over. He shoved a stick into her hands, so she didn't have to bend down just to check the floor. Smart move. Cain couldn't thank them enough for that gesture. It honestly meant everything. Amelia burst in, claimed she'd helped, asked where to look, and he pointed her straight left. She was terrified. Cain was a boy just like her brother, and that meant love never stood a chance to bloom. Meanwhile, Ain couldn't stop thinking how, in RPG games, throne rooms always hide a staircase behind the seat, right there to the right. So he slammed his scepter to the ground, tapping it like a countdown was ticking. He kept hunting for a spot that sounded totally different. While he was locked in, trying to crack the mystery, the other two lined in and demanded to know what he was up to. He ordered Conan to climb down from the throne so they could move it, and Conan was totally on board. Everyone packed in to catch what the boy was doing and to find out what he was hunting for. As soon as he was there, Syl finally tracked him down again, and just like that, she was ready to jump in and help him once more. That's honestly the best. And then bam, there were two identical Sylphs, so to keep this story straight, let's rewind for a second. Sylph was messing around with the creepy doll she snatched from Ain's parents' mansion. Push a button and boom, a perfect copy of yourself materializes, memories and everything. So she's messing around, bumps the button by accident, and boom, right out of nowhere, a perfect clone of her pops into existence. The clone was told to sprint right to find Ain, but instead it refused. Its instincts screamed only one thing, head left. Sylph barked that the copy had to follow her lead, but the clone just rolled her eyes. They launched a mini showdown, no mercy, just to prove who was really right. They both slammed on the brakes, gasping like they'd run for their lives. Just locked eyes and refused to blink, like the whole world was holding its breath. They spun around, and right then and there, both snapped that the duel was officially over. Each of them ripped off down their own chosen path from the very beginning. The clone snapped left, and soon after I stumbled straight onto Ain's crew. She felt like a total genius for choosing the right path, and she was ready to race right after that boy. She caught him locked in deep thought, scanning the ground like he was hunting for a secret staircase. Right when she thought she could finally save him, a stone golem nearly slammed into her, and it took everything in her not to get knocked clean off her feet. She was absolutely stunned by just how gigantic the golem the boy was controlling really was. It was like her eyes could see tomorrow unraveling in real time. Once the golem started rearranging everything, they finally spotted ancient runes etched into the ground. The boy read the rule and froze. Only registered people could get in, and spirits were banned, because the registration was meant for living beings only. Amelia blurts, "Wait, are you serious?" as the boy keeps talking through his explanation. Conan shot in right away and demanded to know what the runes were saying. Ein pointed out that the notes were talking about a secret staircase that dropped straight into the basement. Those words lit a fuse under the kid, and when he demanded where it led, he only got one answer: straight to Heavenopolis. Cert freaked out, swearing that sketchy place was pure danger and they should bolt, but Conan shut him down like, "Chill." As they fought over turning back, the boy's mind screamed one question: should he run to the adults and spill the truth? The sylph clone leaned in and demanded he register, then prove he's got guts. Hearing that voice ring out from beyond always left the boy feeling utterly undone, like it might be God's own whispered warning in the dark. In Melia's biggest religion, the Orthodox Order of Demons, half the people swear they've heard God, Anastasia, speak right to them, and honestly, it's all thanks to his mom that he's religious in the first place. But honestly, not really, because he's going to church for one reason, and that's Elena. Still, he figured the only way to make this work was to chase that voice, write his name down, and the registration would finally be complete. As he snatched the chalk from his bag, the real question hit him: what was his true name? That true language name they're born with. Most of the time, people choose it to match the real name's sound and vibe. He scribbled everything neatly, like he meant business. It doesn't connect to his old life, because in the real tongue it just means to pass the time. Right as he started plotting his next move, the ground slowly split open. There was really a hidden staircase right there, waiting to be found. Conan could barely contain himself. He was itching to dive into that underground room at once. He shouted for everyone to follow him like the hero he thought he was, but Ein lunged in and tried to stop him. The moment he planted his first step through the entrance, he straight up slipped hard and went tumbling right in. Everyone panicked and the boy shot up to them, trying to steady the chaos before it spiraled. As everyone kept bickering, they all crashed into the hole, everyone except the stone golem, which just stood there outside, patient and waiting. Down below, Conan was totally fine, then cracked a joke the second he saw everyone else wipe out. Then he admitted he felt totally embarrassed, because he got so hyped he slipped right up. Then Ain spotted a glowing magic circle right in front of him. But it still felt like there was nothing else hiding there at all. Conan said that in all the time he'd been locked inside, absolutely nothing happened. While the boy shrugged it off as totally normal, Sylph jerked his chin up and told him to stare at the ceiling. He froze, totally clueless about where that voice was coming from, and then he snapped his eyes upward. The words he'd carved inside that magic circle looked like the exact password. Something snapped to life inside the magic circle, leaving everyone completely blindsided. A voice boomed from the platform, shouting that the total magical value was 815, and the portal snapped to life the moment it was confirmed. Scared and totally lost, Amelia grabbed her brother and blurted what was happening, while he fought to calm her shaking down. The voice crackled again, "You've got just 60 seconds left, then they're shipping you straight to Heavenopolis." Heavenopolis hung high above the clouds, miles upon miles away from here. So everyone would have to pay once, give up their lives just to reach it. When they heard that, the whole crowd panicked, every single one, especially Cert, the ultimate scaredy cat. He bolted to escape, but wham, he smashed into a wall that wasn't even there. Screamed in full freakout mode like, "Move it, bro," while Conan just went wide-eyed and kept it moving. He smashed into that wall like it owed him money. His sword shattered in a brutal snap right in his grip. Man, this is a full-on major fail. Amelia yanked out her group teleport spell, bracing to vanish and save everyone. But the spell backfired and she went, "Wait, great, now it's sealing spells based on how you move." Perfect timing, exactly what we needed. Then a voice cut in and snapped, "You've got 30 seconds left," and told everyone to breathe and calm down. Cert was bawling his eyes out, begging not to die here, and shouting if there was any way out at all. He spun toward Ain and blurted, "You're the only one who can teleport us, bro, so hit it, do your thing." Then he figured, if I'm the only one who got registered, why not try it? Amelia came barreling in, voice shaking as she begged him not to, because without him there was no way they could ever get out. He didn't want to lose her either, so he begged to stay out of the teleport, because if everything went sideways, he wanted them to fall together. She kept pleading without stopping, tears pouring down her face as she begged for mercy. But he didn't argue, he just blurted out, "Sorry." Then he fired off his group teleport technique, and boom, she was right there. She sank to the ground, sobbing and screaming for her brother like her heart was breaking. She knew it was a wild gamble, but she still went for it and tried to cast the same spell on him. The voice snapped back into the air, shouting that only 10 seconds remained. The countdown blared to life, and he couldn't stop imagining how terrifying death would feel. He wanted to scream, he wanted to cry, but he swallowed it all down and kept it in. He suddenly remembered his dad would make him smile instead of drowning in tears. And right then you could feel his dad's vibe blasting off him. He refused to walk away and leave a scar big enough to shatter Amelia's heart. He hugged his sister goodbye, then ordered her to deliver his love to Mom and Dad. Amelia blurted out that she was going with him right there, no hesitation. He poured every ounce of his heart into his words and told her he loved her. That's why he begged her to listen, because her hearing his final wish was the last thing he needed. While she dropped to her knees in front of him, he begged her to keep living for him no matter what. He snapped his gaze to Conan and told him to keep an eye on her. Conan was shaken to the core and he swore, right then, that he'd never forget how brave he'd been, no cap. When the countdown finally hit 0, he couldn't help feeling it was kinda heartbreaking to split ways like that. Maybe he should have hit them with that old movie classic, "I'll be back," instead of just leaving everyone hanging. But he swallowed his words, refusing to drop them with nothing back, because whoever took over wasn't coming through. He could only pray they wouldn't leave him behind. Everything looked so crystal clear that it swallowed his focus completely. He couldn't see a thing beyond it. Meanwhile, Sylph's clone stuck right by his side, obsessing over one terrifying question. If it was a copy, could it still make it to the afterlife? The boy lit up with a grin the second he realized the voice was coming along too. When he finally felt that he wasn't alone, that heavy anxiety in his chest started to melt away. When he finally stepped into Heavenopolis, the whole city buzzed like crazy about the new citizen, and judging by his power, they smacked him with the absolute bottom rank, F. And get this, he wasn't just another newcomer, he was one of the first citizens of Heavenopolis. But everyone saw it, their names were the ones that would carry on everything that came before. The boy jolted awake, totally lost, staring around like, where am I? And then his mind totally snapped. He realized he was transparent, drifting in midair, and yet there wasn't a single trace of magic powering him. It was exactly like he imagined it, down to every last detail. Was this really the afterlife, or some cruel prank he couldn't stop staring at? Even so, even with death on the table, his little spark of hope, one more chance to be reincarnated, was hanging by a thread. The thought that I'd never see Amelia and the rest of them again hits like a gut punch. But moping won't change a thing. So he took a breath, then decided to hunt down some other people. He put his brand new abilities to the test. He couldn't believe it, he just slipped through that wall like it was nothing at all. This city looked ridiculously gorgeous and totally decked out, like it was made to impress. Those skyscrapers shot so high into the sky, they made Melia look like a tiny dollhouse toy. When he finally spotted that endless tower, he couldn't stop staring. Just how tall was it, and if he flew alongside it, could he actually reach the very top? With every step he took, certainty slammed into him. There was nobody there. After touristing through a whole stack of houses, after hunting for nearly an hour, he heard nothing. No voices, no footsteps, not a single sound. Hope was draining fast, and it felt like the bottom was dropping out. He might be the only one here, and at this pace, he'll end up alone forever, and yeah, anyone would start looking good then. Tears burned at the edge of his eyes as he shouted for anyone at all, to hear him. At last, Sylph's clone tracked the boy down again. As she closed the distance, she couldn't stop talking. She was buzzing with excitement, thrilled to see him again. That boy heard the familiar voice crack through the air, and he instantly knew it, because it was the only one he'd ever truly counted on. Then she hit him with the biggest bombshell, order in hand, telling him to sprint to that towering skyscraper right in the heart of the city. And he was freezing to death in the basement of that place. She also told me that downstairs sat a whole stash of gorgeous dolls, but she couldn't press their activation button because she wasn't the boss of that area. She shoved him to go, and the poor kid got hit with pure overwhelm, his head spinning like it couldn't breathe fast enough to process everything. But he wiped the tears off his face and charged right back in. So what else was he supposed to do, chase that voice or lose it forever? When he finally arrived, Sylph scrambled to show him exactly where his body was hidden. He'd already started sliding through walls like it was nothing, no doors, no problem. That place screamed sci-fi, like it ripped straight out of a movie set. And he was praying it would finally feel like a proper medieval morgue. Sylph pointed straight at the back freezer and said, "It's in here." And there it was right in front of him, his body. All warm and tucked into cryogenic sleep, and right then, while he took it in, the little one started yelling his name for attention. She shoved a plaque into his hands, pointing out every detail about the device, and then it warned him that if he wanted to jump back into his own body, all he had to do was tie it up, and the boy swore he'd heard about a trick like that before. But then he went for broke and took the leap. He pressed his touch against his body, desperate to get him back. The second he made contact, an electric pull yanked through him. And just like that, he snapped back into control of his own body. His soul finally roared back into the world. Sylph pumped him up, and he was bouncing with pure, giddy excitement, believing that voice was God steering every step he took. He asked her straight up if she was a god, and the little one hesitated hard, like her very arrival might have changed something. She figured it was all thanks to the super body she got after the original Sylph cloned herself. She ripped into her god form and shouted, "I'm sure you're nano-god." But Ayn couldn't make out her own face at all, because the light from it was blindingly intense. That god form sucked the life out of the little one, draining every ounce of energy. And just like that, she flicked it off to save every last drop of power. She told the boy she'd reveal her final form as a special thank you, then vanished, leaving him staring, wondering if he'd imagined the whole thing. She told him, "I'll show you again later," then winked, staying right there to rain down more wisdom. She told him to sprint to the second floor below and flip the switch to activate the dolls. She shouted for him to take the elevator, and he just followed her like, "Let's go." They burst onto the second floor. The boy snatched a cloth and wrapped it around himself. When he cracked the door and peeked in, his stomach dropped at the sight of all those women's bodies, drained of life, sleeping in tubes packed with water. The Sylph clone leaned in and said the controls were sitting right beyond that door. But the boy was still frozen in pure shock, trying to crack what this place even asterisk was asterisk, because it felt like there was a whole secret hiding in plain sight. The battlefield was packed with bodies, so many of them that you couldn't even tell if they were real corpses or just lifeless dolls. They looked so painfully real, like you could hear them breathing, like they were totally zonked out and catching Z's. They looked like the exact same person at first, but the little details, hair, moles, everything, were wildly different. The boy stood there, totally mesmerized by one of the dolls. And then he started moving like he couldn't breathe, obsessed with that girl. She kept throwing shade, mocking his terrible taste in women. Then she snapped at him to activate the doll and jabbed her finger at the wall on the right. There it was in black and white, Battle Deity Dolls Alpha Series. The boy couldn't believe it. They were basically combat golems, just built to wreck. Sylph swore she could do more than battle and protect her master. She'd jump in and handle the everyday stuff too. Then the boy dove headfirst into a quest to track down the button that would finally set the doll free, and while he scanned the activation instructions, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was totally stuck. In his past life, he'd already devoured a manga with the exact same kind of twisted setup. But Sylph wouldn't let him drift off. She snapped him back to reality and urged him to hurry. As he traced a quick touch on the glass of the tube where the girl was, the water began to drain, slipping away fast. And the boy clutched her body tight like he couldn't let go. It felt almost human in both texture and warmth, yet she floated there like a feather, and all he could think was, "She's stunning." Her skin was perfectly smooth, just like it should be, and she didn't have a single heartbeat. She looked up at him and warned, "Don't just pet me, reach out and really connect with me." Since she'd been messing with her for a while and getting nowhere, the boy finally snapped and said, "All right, I'll do it now." Even with the memories of his past life in his head, he still felt his nerves explode, pure, shaky panic. He clenched his teeth, shoved down every fear and jolt of nerves, and charged forward, ready to switch on that doll. He slid in 2 fingers and started poking around, snagging the button hidden on the doll's body. He couldn't quite make it to the spot, so Sylph snapped an idea, grab something bigger. But the boy just shot back, "I don't have anything like that on me." She didn't even pause. She blurted that he had exactly what he needed, and the moment it hit, it finally clicked for him. Standing right behind him, she pumped him up to do what had to be done, but it only cranked up his anxiety. Still, his body was fired up and ready to finish the job. So yeah, there was no turning back. He had to go for it. A weird dread hit him and guilt started clawing at his chest. But he shoved those thoughts away like they were poison, and wouldn't stop pounding away at it, trying to wake the doll up. Suddenly, like someone flipped a switch, something inside the doll ignited, blazing to life. She blinked awake one breath at a time. Right in front of his eyes. She beamed and told him she was crazy happy he let her come to life. And it screamed, yep, this is her harem moment for her insanely awesome master. Now rewind with me, this sylph clone was trapped in pitch-black darkness, blind as a bat with not a single thing in sight. Then Heavenopolis blared a warning, forcing her to boot the alpha system, the program that follows everything, and her heart dropped like, wait, am I really the successor? She was buzzing with excitement, and then the voice kept hammering into her head that it would rip her body from her soul and lock her into a cryopod. The boy behind her started glowing out of nowhere, and she snapped, wait, what's happening? When he disappeared, she couldn't stop wondering if he was the very successor they'd been whispering about. The system blared a warning that something felt off, and the readout confirmed it. A copy doll was wearing a fake spirit like a disguise. The expulsion systems roared to life, and the countdown to the shot started ticking down. A laser tore across the room and blasted the sylph clone right out of existence, making her start to melt like her resolve couldn't hold. But a little while later, she popped right back up, smiling like nothing happened, all happy again, even though her consciousness was still fully there. A mysterious stranger kept sizing her up, and honestly, it's already wild for a copy doll to even have a real identity, but in her final moments, she felt a connection to him. The sylph sized him up, mocked the big glasses, and demanded, who are you and where are they? That mysterious thing swore it had no body at all, so all she saw was a shape her imagination cooked up. He bragged that he was beyond gods, like a god that had outgrown every other god. And her jaw dropped in total awe. He said this place was her dream, and the doll's thought snapped back. Wait, if a clone like me can dream, then what does that make her? He told her she'd never wake up in Asaya again. Asaya and Gehenna are split by a line they call heaven, the place where her body got totally obliterated. And once it was gone, there was zero way to get it back. Right then her soul just hung on, staring at her final dream before everything detonated, and the moment she heard that, despair swallowed her whole. She was told to calm down fast, because letting someone who could connect with him disappear would be a total tragedy. He vowed to build her a godlike, magically powered mechanical body, complete with stealth mode, so she could slip past the city's defenses and stay safe. She was on cloud 9 after ascending to become a mechanical god. As he disappeared, he said he only wanted to test what she could do with those insane powers, and that he'd be watching her closely. With that, the sylph clone snapped into a brand new, super special body and kept hunting, staying on her mission to watch Ein and chase her just a little longer. We're thrown right back into the present, and that painfully awkward scene hits again. Sylph was buzzing with joy, celebrating the fact that the boy finally got the doll to turn on, while he stood there awkward as hell, begging her to calm down and let the hype breathe. Even though he still couldn't see her, she could finally talk a mile clearer with him now, thanks to that seriously awesome body. But the doll couldn't hear Sylph at all, so she turned to Ein, her brand new master, and begged for a real name. The little one blurted out, my serial number's 77, so I'm basically 77, 7 in A. The boy paused for a split second, then grinned and blurted out, let's call him Nanashi. That doll practically buzzed with excitement after hearing the name her master chose for her. He turned it into a taunt, teasing Nana like, come on, she's totally into you. He brushed her aside and shot Nanashi a quick question. Did she really count as a doll because she didn't look like one at all? She snapped back that she came from the Alpha series of battle deity dolls, basically a humanoid golem. And her whole vibe was screaming, make him happy, because that was her one mission, her entire life. She fired off one brutal question, why him, why her, and why she was the one he chose from every option. He shrugged it off and told me he didn't have a real reason at all. But Sylph wasn't buying it. He snapped back that he needed to drop a destiny line or some classic line that'll sweep a girl off her feet. He straight up said it felt like destiny, the kind no one could escape. And would you look at that plot twist? The girl squealed with joy and blurted, and pure happiness lit her up. Ein leaned in and demanded to know how he even ditched that floating city and slammed straight back down to Earth. She paused for a beat and dug through her database to pull up anything she could about Earth. The more time he spent vibing with her, the more he felt it. She'd find a way to get him home. But just like that, his hype crashed when she told him she couldn't find anything that matched his request. She looked devastated that she couldn't help her master, but he fired back to lift her spirits. Then the doll blurted that her mom could help him out. She told me her mom was a magical AI, just up there on the top of that control tower, totally chilling. The sylph clone went off on a furious rant, claiming that AI shattered her body, and swearing she'd never, ever forgive it. He shoved the boy toward the spot the doll pointed at, determined to smash that AI into scrap metal. But before they could bounce out, Ain hustled to grab fresh clothes and stock up on household supplies. Because he couldn't keep his own body in check, and then he got caught. But somehow it felt eerie, no doll workers were anywhere in sight. He told me he'd ghosted through that whole city, and still couldn't spot a single human anywhere. He wondered if he could truly just grab whatever he wanted, and then the sylph hit him with the twist, think of it like a loan. He yanked on an outfit that made him look like a total heartthrob, then realized he still couldn't see a thing without his glasses. Nana blurted out to her master, asking, "So, does this underwear look good on me?" And the boy froze the second he saw her, while the sylph cranked the heat higher, right beside his ear. She kept insisting there were still more options, then leaned in and asked if that was truly his favorite. The boy froze even harder, like his whole body just got trapped in ice. With a strained breath he blurted, "Okay, he looks better, but seriously, hurry up and get dressed." If this didn't stop right now, he'd be done for, way sooner than he could handle. In the West, there were a ton of outfits to choose from, and the doll asked which one he liked most. He grinned and said the maid uniform was totally her vibe. Nanashi flashed him a grateful smile and thanked him for choosing for her. Meanwhile, the little troublemaker taunted him, sneering that he was hiding in a doll's body to live out his dirtiest fantasies. Ain told her he used to power up with magical glasses and couldn't even relax anymore without them. Then she insisted there was a pair on the 7th floor, so he called her and hurried over to grab glasses for both. The second they arrived, the boy's eyes widened. There was way more than just glasses. He grabbed one for himself and then shoved the rest toward Nanashi. "Go on, try one of those." The floating city was on a whole other level, and those glasses were miles better than anything he'd ever worn back on Earth. As he scanned the specs, the doll flashed a compliment and told him he looked amazing in glasses. When he spotted Nanashi rocking those glasses, he was left speechless by just how stunning she looked, and boom, this new couple was totally coming together. Right then, Sylph bulldozed into the moment and demanded, "Can you guys hit the top floor now?" The boy grabbed the doll and begged it to take him straight to the top floor of the tower. They piled into the elevator and Nanashi snapped, "We're going to the 999th floor." He swore it would take forever, then, before that thought even finished forming, they were already there. She claimed she used teleportation magic to snatch them there instantly. Once they finally arrive, she said the control room where his mom was trapped sat at the very end of that hallway. While Nana prayed she could dodge the answers he needed, the boy just hoped the goddess tagging along with him wouldn't ruin everything before he could get what he wanted. Nanashi said, "I'm a city citizen, so when I touch that door it's gotta open. So yeah, I'm feeling a little nervous." The boy shoved his hand forward and touched the door. Then bam, a warning flashed, saying entry was totally off limits for rank F citizens. There the boy felt tiny as a speck and Sylph snapped, "Step back." The little one snapped it with a brutal double rebuke. Easily ripped that door apart. Still stunned by what she just witnessed, Nanashi blinked. Her glasses instantly flashed a totally absurd power reading, 530,000 right this second. And she admitted that even as a battle golem, she couldn't scratch that door made of or a calcum alloy, and she couldn't shake the fear of what kind of beast could be strong enough to make it that way. Sylph shot back that she was running on fumes, and her color timer started screaming, beep after beep, nonstop. She'd have to slam into sleep mode to recharge. She swore she'd tear that mother apart with a full storm of fury, then unleash a squad of sylphs, and end it all with Ashura Shippu's devastating combo. But right now, sleep had to come first, so they'd stash that epic showdown for later. Her message could wait, and Ain tuned everything out. The boy froze, not knowing what to do, while Nana insisted, "The door's wide open now," even as she warned that stepping in would mean trespassing. Then a booming voice ordered Citizen Neat, "Step into the room." Hearing his real name etched into the ruins like a record hit him like a punch to the gut. She didn't even let it slide. His mom was calling him, just like she said. And in that exact moment, the boy couldn't bring himself to say no. So he charged through the door, stepping inside. He strode in and locked eyes on a goddess statue. It felt weirdly familiar, like he'd seen that exact design somewhere in the past. He remembered it from Porto Real, the capital of the new continent, and nobody had a clue how long it had been sitting there, cold and waiting. But it was only a stone statue, no magic, no living mystery, and he couldn't shake the feeling it was all just a wild coincidence. The statue called him in, and its calm, velvet voice made the boy feel like this thing wasn't about to throw down. After only a few steps, the boy blurted, "Are you my mother?" She shot back that she ran the whole city, and everyone knew her title, Mother of the Creators. He threw out an apology for busting the door, and she told him that a neat citizen shouldn't lose sleep over something like that. The kid insisted he'd walk in without wrecking a thing, but only Class A folks had the VIP pass to enter, and the statue snapped back that he was a special exception. And it declared he was the universal heir, one name that could unlock every last treasure hoarded in that floating city in the sky. Hearing that, the boy's brain instantly short-circuited. He was totally mind-blown. He panicked, blurting, "What does that even mean?" And the statue and the doll basically told him to calm down. Then they ripped it apart step by step, starting right with the city. That floating city didn't just sit above Earth, it lived in a totally different dimension, and its streets literally hung in the sky. That place was raised more than 10,000 years ago by ancient beings, so advanced they practically felt like a super civilization. Back then, their tech was so advanced it made everything on Earth look outdated overnight. The boy was absolutely buzzing, locked in on every piece of tech there like it was about to blow his mind. The statue kept rolling on, insisting that just a little while back, magical tools existed, things so unreal they sounded like pure fantasy. For example, a spirit-repelling ring that packs a spirit shutdown sphere right inside. Even Earth had stuff like that, but nothing compared to the level those ancient people reached. Maybe it was the super ancient magical civilization everyone was chasing, until disaster struck shortly after the city was built. The descendants were erased to the last soul, then the boy snapped, "What happened?" Then the statue dropped the answer, but the exact cause stayed a total mystery. But maybe they just managed to cross off something even stronger than the gods themselves. Thanks to the ancient, super-advanced beings' rules, whoever was the first to claim citizenship in that city would inherit every scrap of goods that was left. And yeah, that person was him, the pristine citizen everyone thought they knew. And Nanashi boldly claimed he could do whatever he wanted with the whole city, and with his sisters down in the underground floor. All of it was his, yet the boy just couldn't make his mind accept it. It felt unreal, like I was living inside a dream, seeing all that crazy stuff and walking through a mythical, super ancient civilization, and still. He couldn't stand it anymore. He had to get back to Earth, back to all the friends waiting for him. So if they even had a shot at bouncing back, they'd have to spill the whole tea, no holding back. The statue promised him right there in stone that there was a way back. A glowing portal opened up, giving them a way back. But powering it up demanded a huge chunk of pure magical energy. To kick that portal on, the power had to hit at least 900 kilometers worth. Only a Class A citizen could even reach that level. The boy was convinced he could pull it off in under a year. Nanashi broke it down fast. 1 kilometer is roughly 1,000 meters, so 900 kilometers slams straight to 900,000 meters. To flip the portal on, he had to pump in a total power of exactly 900,000 meters. After he finally heard this, the boy hit the ground, stunned beyond belief. All he could do was think of his family and silently beg Amelia's forgiveness in his head. It felt like no amount of decades of training could ever send him back down from that floating city in the sky. Meanwhile, back in Melia, inside the Church of the Order of Mages, Amelia dropped to her knees and begged the ultimate goddess, Anastasia, with all her heart, praying like her brother's life depended on it. 3 blazing years had ripped past since Ayn vanished without a trace. Her dad was wallowing in worry, scanning for any sign she was okay, while her sister stayed totally calm. "She's fine." She told Amelia that if she prayed every single day, something would happen. That goddess would listen to every word, no doubt about it. With hope blazing in her chest, she clung to one promise. She'd find her brother again, and if they ever reunited, she'd sacrifice it all to the goddess Anastasia. She begged the goddess to finally hear her prayers, while the fam kept praying just as hard for their beloved end. But guess what? He was fully living his best life. Creeping in on him, a whole swarm of dolls boxed him in. Granting his every wish and feeding him with mouth-watering treats, he floated through the sky in a chill, perfect little life, until sometimes his thoughts would jolt him back to reality, like a slap, reminding him he had to get back to Earth, back to his family. Then, out of nowhere, one of the dolls creeping up on him yanked him out of his daydream. With a sweet, familiar voice, she told him to call her Nana, like she always did. She just needed to know one thing: would he still love her today? And for the first time, he thought, maybe I can stay a little longer before I head back. He was slammed with building a whole city on the ground. Then, somehow, he got ripped away to this floating paradise, and 3 years later, That abandoned city just lit up again, roaring back to life. He finally obliterated his 900,000 mark and blasted past 1 million power. Everyone threw a wild party to celebrate his legendary victory, and the main dish was the real star of the night. Sear the duck breast until it's golden, then melt in rich foie gras. He couldn't wait to dig into that dish, and Nana promised everyone was going all out to make the celebration go off. She even spoon-fed him like he was a helpless baby. He swore it was a real bomb treat, straight up like the goodies back on Earth, and there was a spell that kept it fresh forever, like it was straight up insane. Combat robot number 20 rolled in out of nowhere and slid him some white truffle. He praised her and said it was super tasty, and she lit up with huge smiles. They both nodded like, yeah, he earned every bit of this, because hitting 1 million power isn't some easy win, it's a monster milestone. And that's the thing, every last bit of it happened because of his skills and the grind he put in every single day. Just then another doll bounced in like a blur, leapt onto his lap, shouted he was a genius, and begged him for a hug. The other two were seething the moment she showed up, especially over the fact that she was completely undressed. The boy just stood there, totally frozen, caught off guard by her. Combat robot number 82, dear, stood ready to rumble. Yet another one burst into the scene. So yeah, getting the master's blessing was asterisk her job, and only her, and that's Mimi, combat robot number 33. As they walked away, Deer leaned in and told her, don't stress, I'll handle it in the right order. Up on the floating city, right in the tower's very heart, there was a fancy little throne spot reserved for the highest-ranking citizens. They told him, straight to his face, that combat robots needed his love more than they needed food. In that swanky room, where the air practically sparkled with status and secrets, he had them feeling absolutely adored. After he'd thrown himself into everything for Nanashi, facing his mom head-on, he snapped awake and dragged all his sisters underground with him, 100 of them in total. He pulled the exact same move again, just like he did with Nanashi at. On the back there was a reserve button, but trust me, it wasn't as simple as that because it was packed with way more complicated stuff. They weren't just sitting around in the dark, they needed his love too, so a fresh wave of 1,000 servant robots crashed into the crew. From sunrise to sunset, they served him with wild, devoted energy. Oh, and half of them wore glasses exactly like he wanted. Because looking after him was their joy, their reason to keep living. But it wasn't like he was just relaxing, he was locked in, staying busy the whole time. He swallowed a secret potion to supercharge his magic power, and right as he was about to slip into a meditation between gods and demons, everything felt ready to explode. They swore true magical gates lived inside the human body. These gates were the magic highways, pumping out pure energy, basically the chakra of this world. By cracking open the gates and pushing his mind through meditation, he could seriously supercharge his magic and push past his limits. But he'd already nailed the target, so chasing anything else didn't even add up. Right after training, Nana thrust a towel into his hands and hit him with a heartfelt thanks for going so hard. Seriously, watching you keep grinding to sharpen your talent, that's genuinely awesome, she said. And it was all because Nana and the others pushed the real gate-opening device that they finally managed to rip open his gate. Back in the day, humans barely ever cracked open more than 1 or 2 gates, maybe 4 tops if they were lucky, according to the records. But once he cracked open 6 of the 7 seals, everyone snapped to attention, like he had to be a chosen one for a reason. Still, he couldn't stop thanking Nana and the whole crew, because it wasn't just the opening device that changed everything, it was every bit of backup they threw his way too, and honestly, he never thought he'd ever reach this level. Nanashi blurted out his thanks, grateful for everything he'd done. A whole gang of dolls smashed through the door like it was nothing. They were buzzing with excitement. Now that he'd crushed his training, it was official. Game time in the game room. Summoning stone golems to smash their enemies in battle, while every doll screamed and cheered for the boy. And number 20 pulled off another one, yeah, right then and there. She was just at the very start of her journey, right on the edge of everything changing. And finally starting to click with it. Every cheerleader craved a shot at taking control of the golem their master had built. Then he blared it to the whole crowd. Everyone could jump in at the exact same time. They all sprinted straight for the goal, racing like it was the last chance they'd ever get. And he slammed straight into the boy's golem. Nana blurted, they've got him completely cornered. But the boy tore through every golem around him with ease. And the winner was lined up and sent off as usual. He always came off unstoppable, commanding those golems like it was nothing. And he said, I'd already sweated a little. Then it was time to hit the bath. Then they all burst in at once, shouting, saying they'd handle it for him today. And just like that, the dolls swarmed together and marched off to give the boy a bath. That he insisted he could wash himself, and told them they had nothing to worry about. One of them surged forward and slid right up to him, saying she'd make sure he was spotless, no exceptions. And just like that, everyone else chimed in, "We'll give it our all." Because the night was just getting started. They begged him to let them serve him even more. The boy just nodded, letting it all hit and sticking with it, before he even realized the night was already slipping away. Then he threw caution to the wind and let life crash forward, reckless as ever. He solved the total magical power problem for the return portal, and now he could rocket straight back up to the surface. He couldn't wait to get back fast, but the thought of leaving Nana and everyone who'd stuck by him this whole time crushed him. She clocked something was seriously off, then rushed over to ask, "Hey, are you okay?" He waved it off like it was nothing and told everyone to drop it. She wrapped her arms around him tight like she'd never let go. As long as they stayed by his side, it didn't matter where they went. They'd ride with him to the very end, no excuses, no turning back. Then it hit him, why didn't he think to bring them along instead of leaving them behind? I told her you've always been right there for him, ready to help when he needs you most. The doll swore she'd stay right beside him, no matter what. He told her he felt so calm, it was like his eyelids were already pulling him into sleep. Tomorrow he'll rush straight to his mom, and he's convinced it'll all turn out okay. He was still recovering when the girls burst in. That magical recovery potion was laced with spiritual water, an insane elixir that slammed his magical power and physical stamina back to full, and it all happened in just 1 hour. As soon as he arrived, he kept fainting and snapping back like a broken heartbeat, and number 20 swore she'd heard that the moment he passes out, he gets hit with magical intoxication. Nanashi bragged that his endless grind pushed his magical power straight to a mind-blowing 1 million. After he finally recovered, the boy shot back up and, no time to breathe, she barreled in like a blur, eyes locked on him, and confessed, "I love how you look." Nana shoved the glasses into his hands and asked if he was all right. Then the boy shot back that his body didn't get drunk on magic the way it should. He said that back on Earth, he did the same kind of training too, but they had to space it out every 2 or 3 days, or else he'd burn out completely. But the moment he realized the magical recovery potion came with 0 worries, he exhaled like the world finally made sense. The dear one lined in and told me, "Earth is where the master lives." She asked what he did most when he was on Earth, and he grinned and said he spent his days roaming the city, exploring every street. He hunted birds, tracked rivers, and then got busy forging tools, because it all came down to powering agriculture. Nana leaned close, grinning, and told him she just had to hear more stories about the master. Now he's about to spill even more of his memories, bit by bit. A while back, his family got a notice from the provincial government urging them to grow cotton, because a cotton gin had just been invented and the whole farming world was suddenly booming. On the new continent, the land stretches for miles, especially in the south, where steaming heat and sticky humidity turn cotton, wheat, and other crops into an absolute paradise. But the air around Melia's village just doesn't feel right at all. The boy told them if we head south of Melia, warmer lands are waiting, untouched, just for us. His mother snapped back that even if the weather looked good, this was a bone-dry place where it barely ever rained. And his father promised he'd kick off a brand new project in Melia, because the demand for their products was about to explode. I knew they didn't just need the land, they needed the grind that came with it. A plantation is basically a massive farm where one crop rules the whole landscape, and cotton plantations have shaped history for ages, evolving into a full-blown powerhouse industry. The boy couldn't wait to jump in and crank up Melia's economy. Carla warned that other countries were dragging slaves in from the magical continent just to keep everything running. Keynes tried to jump in, but the woman snipped him off. She said she knew he was against slavery, yet for their next projects they needed labor that was cheap and easy to bend. He admitted he wasn't totally against it. If it meant people could live better lives, he'd seriously consider it. The boys kicked off a wild brainstorming session, hunting for other ways out, and then he leaned in to his dad and blurted out, "I've got a brilliant idea." To help Melia's economy and to spare slaves from suffering, they decided to try growing cotton as an experiment. The two of them jumped on his idea instantly, like they were ready to go before the plan even finished forming, and leaned in, demanding every last detail. They promised they'd get a true cultivation expert on the case the second they could. And that's how Melia's expansion exploded into motion. In a tense meeting with the Eisenkot official and expert Mendoza, he admitted with a heavy heart that it simply wouldn't grow there. Ain was already plotting his backup plan if the village try failed. He told them about those untouched lands farther south where the heat was brutal and where they could try to make the rain fall. Then Mendoza leaned in and told us rain isn't just about dropping from the sky. Before they flower, they demand serious heat and a massive downpour. Then after they bloom, dry weather hits different and works way better. The boy shot back that his magic lets him fully control the rain, like he's got the whole sky right in his hands. Mendoza's eyes lit up. He couldn't believe how cool it was, especially coming from someone so tiny. And yeah, the soil quality mattered, so the boy leaned in and asked if he could go check it himself. Mendoza stammered that he had to see it for himself, and this time his research would be right near Melia. Then the boy grinned and said, "With my magic, we can fly there in a blink super fast." He promised the man they'd be flying, and Mendoza sank into deep, intense thought. Right after that, he said, "If it won't take forever, we're good. Let's go tomorrow." Ain and Amelia went out the very same day to scout the site, and they kept going from there, right on. When they finally showed up, the place hit them like a giant oven, huge, chaotic, and painfully hot. He laughed and teased that she could have just stayed home but she said she couldn't skip a sky meeting with her brother. He told her, "Stay right by me, don't let a second slip." Then he ripped into the battlefield with his ultimate move, extreme earth explosion. In the blink of an eye, the land was wiped spotless, and that boy looked insanely impressive. All the rocks and trees had vanished, and the ground turned so soft it practically begged to be plowed and farmed. Amelia practically couldn't believe what her brother could do. He made it look effortless. She couldn't stop singing his praises. After that magic hit, he somehow managed to wipe out every dangerous magical monster in the area. Now they were halfway to building the farm the boy had been dreaming about. The very next day, Mendoza returned, dug into the soil, and nodded, confirming it was perfect for cotton. But he leaned in and demanded, "Can that kid really pull it off with magic? Because we still need hard labor covered." The boy claimed he could command the rain and summon golems out of it. They used the golems to break up the ground and get the soil ready for planting, to get the land prepped so plants could explode into thriving life. Mendoza stared in disbelief at how many golems he could wrestle under his control at the same time. The boy's dad told him they'd still need real human hands for the picky jobs, so he decided to hire a few workers who cost a bit more, because even after paying them, they'd still rake in profit. And he never in a million years imagined they'd actually start growing cotton. Every bit of this starts with little Ain, who burst in with unstoppable initiative and had everyone staring in disbelief. The boy lined in and promised he'd help any way he could, and they'd finally sink their teeth into real missions, gaining experience that would pay off big. In the old earth plantations, slaves suffered and got used up without mercy, so with all that magic, he should be able to handle things without those sacrifices. Harvest time isn't here yet, the size is still tiny, but it's absolutely going to blow up into a real industry, and Melia is going to level up even more. And that's how he's been calling the shots, finishing his tale for the dolls his way. When he wrapped it up, the whole crowd broke down, crying hard, completely wrecked by the story they'd just heard. Everyone started showering him with praise, telling him how his non-stop dedication to the village moved them to the core. And once they caught the way he talked about slaves, it hit them hard. Nothing had really changed in years. You could tell what kind of person he was by the way he showered the combat dolls and his servants with wild, unstoppable kindness. He's been grinding every single day to get back to Earth, and when it finally dawned on him, nostalgia hit like a truck. He's ready to unleash that power for the people who truly need it, and he's about to make moves that hit like thunder. Then he leaned in and told the dolls he had to get something off his chest. Everyone went silent, and he hit them with the shocking truth. He wanted to head back to Earth with all of them. He lined in and begged them to go with him, and boom, every single one of them yelled back, "You got it, we're 100% in." She broke down and confessed, all teary-eyed, that she thought he ditched her. Nana shot them a confident look and promised they'd stay side by side no matter what hit them. That lit a fire in him, and he bolted to tell his mom the second he could. But the second he arrived, the statue was, "Not there today, buddy." He was totally rattled, and he blurted, "Why?" Since he had the magic to open the portal, or if she refused to let him take the girls. The statue told him flat out he was the last citizen standing, and that his spot was right there with her. The boy shot back with an argument, and she flat out warned him, "Keep pushing and I'll have to drag out the brainwashing and memory wipe crap." But there was no way. Eind was the limit, and that wasn't happening. Then bam, a voice snapped that Curran was back, and he instantly knew that sound. Sylph jolted awake from her long nap, convinced it'd take just 3 minutes. Now she was set to fire up, warm her way in, and finish off that monster they called Mother. And just like that, the door got absolutely wrecked. At 530,000 combat power, the little one finally clicked into place and linked up with Aind. And when she finally spoke, he chased the echo of a mysterious voice he couldn't see, still haunting his mind. But this time she snapped off the stealth mode for good. The moment she showed up, he stared like, wait, what's a wind spirit doing here? And that was before he noticed the goofy hair. But her vibe felt weirdly familiar, like he'd locked eyes with her years ago, back when those magical glasses were riding her face. It hit him, somehow he'd been quietly worshipping her like a goddess this whole time. And it hit him, he felt totally dumb for ever thinking he was worshipping a goofy goddess. The mother statue swore it was exactly like the replicant doll she'd yanked out years ago, and Sylph's rage exploded the moment she realized it was her. Then that statue snapped, calling her an enemy, like her danger level was a bonus. Then he slammed the switch and activated the Guardian summoning system. Ein stared at it and blurted out to Nana, "Is that the stone demon statue?" And Nana shot back, "No, it's Pazuzoria, the demon king." And that she could wipe out 100 Dragon Kings solo with ease, and she was one of the strongest guardians. But Sylph, with one brutal move, shattered that demonic statue into a million glittering pieces. For her, it was effortless, so effortless that the other two just froze, completely stunned by her raw power. The little one swore she'd unleash her real power and plunge her mother straight into pure, bottomless terror. As a princess, she unleashed her shining magic, and he got transformed into a fairy. And now that she'd flashed her magical girl form, he declared the game was over, then updated the danger level to S. Combat power blasted past 1,000,000, and then the tiny girl casually dropped the bomb. She still had 2 more transformations left. Before she transformed, she warned she'd send the statue into pure terror, then wipe it out, and she was sweating bullets, terrified of what came next. When she erupted into her transformation, Nanashi declared, "My combat power is at 3,000,000 now." A form so horrifying and disgusting it made your stomach twist. Its danger level was stamped SSS. Just seeing Ain made him unravel. Sylph watched him spiral, and she knew it was way more than any human could handle. And she hit her super illusion mode, turning into someone breathtaking in his eyes so he wouldn't get scared. She snapped that she was done pulling punches, and then she promised to unveil her final form, the same one she'd already shown him before. She told him to brace himself, because the light was about to go nuclear, super bright and blinding. Her next true form, cute as a button and absolutely, undeniably lovely. Then she flipped into her supreme god machine mode, and just like she promised, it blasted so bright the boy's eyes nearly watered. As she tried to crunch her combat power, Nanashi instantly started freezing up, way too much for her to handle. The statue blared that the threat was beyond prediction, then slammed the city's final defense system to life, burning through every last drop of magical power it had. Sylph told the boy that the city's roar was way louder now, and that snapped his focus instantly. The kid said the whole city was basically a giant magical robot, and some creepy doll called Mother ran the show. I asked how she knew all this, and she just shrugged like it was nothing. "I'm smart," she said. She told them straight-faced that if they destroyed that doll, the whole city would collapse with it, and somehow she acted like it was no big deal. For now, she wasn't here to talk, she was out to destroy it. The boy begged her hard, swearing he owed that statue everything, because his mother had taken care of him for 3 long years. He was convinced that if he just sat her down and talked, she'd finally understand, so he begged her not to break a single thing. To everyone's shock, Sylph was totally on board with the idea. She said, "Since you won't quit, fine, I'll make an exception this once." But then she spun around, ready to apologize to the mother's statue. A brutal megablast slams into Sylph, ripping away half its magical power, except that the little one's somehow left standing. That was nothing, more like a tiny pebble smacking you for a second. But that just pushed her over the edge. Now she was ready to unleash full fury on that statue. She unleashed her lightning and went full power. Quietly, one by one, it tears everything apart. Except the statue's nuclear core. She leaned in and told the boy, "Bring me every piece, and I'll think about using my powers to fix it." But just when she thought it was over, the statue lurched upward on its own. And it's all happening because the entire city just got hit with a full-blown emergency. It slammed into forced magic collection mode. It absolutely wrecked the dolls. Nanashi just dropped right beside the boy. Sylph snapped to it. This statue was draining magic from everything around it. The boy asked what that giant black sphere was, and the little one shrugged and said, "It's a super-dimensional magic technique." And just like that, every single doll across the city went dead silent. Every one of them stopped working. It was a magical sphere that feasted on energy from everywhere, pulling power from the air itself. Sylph snatched this win with her all-knowing powers. Then, when the sphere came flying at her, she figured she could just slap it back with a clean magic reflect. But the moment her arm brushed the sphere, she realized that sphere wasn't something you could ever snag or even reflect in the first place. And now you're probably thinking, wait, how didn't she see this coming? With that all-knowing power of hers, it feels impossible, right? She just couldn't be bothered to double-check the details of the sphere. The second she got yanked into that sphere, she told A, "I'll be back real soon." And then bam, she got yanked in like it was a trap she never saw coming. And the boy couldn't stop replaying her words in his head. It was the exact same phrase he'd heard the moment they dumped him in the celestial realm. He couldn't see her anymore, but he swore she'd come back because she promised, and that's why she was his goddess still. Panic hit him hard for Nana, because if she was out there with no magic. There's some ancient super magic tech buried on Earth, plus a ritual that hands out magical power through contact with mucus and other bodily fluids. This could crank out nearly 100% magical power, way stronger than plain old skin contact. Using this technique, they're about to pull off something wild. I jolted Nanashi awake again, and if I could wake him, I knew I could stir the others up too. The statue barked at them to listen up. They bragged that they'd blasted the intruders away with a mountain of magic, and now that floating city wasn't going anywhere. With every system dying at once, the boy snapped, "So is it happening right now?" She said not yet, but they were barely keeping it semi-dormant, somehow, for 3 more brutal hours, and if they could stall the magic drain a little longer, then after, they'd never wake up again. And the boy had to bolt out of that city in just 3 hours. So he stepped up to the mother statue, bowed his head, and started apologizing, like he had to make peace with how everything turned out. The statue flat out told her she wouldn't leave the boy hanging. She kicked off the separation and disarmament of the colossal magical god. Then the real form of Mother burst into view. So she said she'd go up to the surface with the boy, and there'd be no chance for him to refuse. Nana leaned in and told him this was the real deal, the one his master was counting on. That statue didn't just change, it awakened into a divine being. And she told him this was only the shell of a gigantic deity, just armor, a hollow vessel holding something far bigger. Inside the core, the ultimate artificial life form was torn in two. One part went dormant, and the other stayed awake, driven by an insatiable need. The boy got hit with so much info, he couldn't even process it all. He demanded to know if that mom was stalking him. She shot back, "Yep, and congrats, you're basically my kid now." She clocked Nanashi's outfit and blurted, "Is that your whole vibe?" With that doll flashing a thumbs up, she fit right into his style like it was made for her. With creation magic on full blast, she slammed together an outfit identical to Nana's, and the doll was all about one thing, the fit inside a pocket. She grinned and called it a dimensional pocket, a wildly magical stash that links straight to the city's treasure vault, so if Neat needs something awesome, she can yank it out in a snap. Mom told me to rush to the dimensional port at the very top of the tower, but right then I got slapped with one final request. He blurted out that he was going to drag every magical doll back up to the surface. He swore he'd stick with them, no way he was gonna ditch them now. But they insisted they were on a tight schedule and promised they'd talk about it after they passed through the gate. They tore toward the transfer gate, the portal that could fling them to anywhere. To flip it on, you needed 900,000 magical power, but Neat crushed that with over 1,000,000, so yeah, he was totally good. But that still wasn't enough to rouse every magical doll and drag them along, because they were running dangerously low on magical juice. He asked that man if the recovery pot was still busted, and Mom just shrugged, "Nope," so he grinned and unleashed one of the advanced magical techniques she taught him. He'd plunged straight into the void of resurgence, letting his mana snap back to full power so he could blast everyone with pure magical energy. Mom snapped, "Hold up, yeah, you can recharge, but there's a hard limit on how many dolls you can wake, and if you keep throwing yourself into that void, your lifespan is gonna get wrecked." She scrambled to convince him that those dolls weren't anything special, just lifeless objects. Then she lined in and asked if he was truly crazy enough to stake his life for a handful of toys. He didn't even hesitate, he blurted yes, because they were everything to him. Mom finally got what he was feeling. She shoved the mental resonance control helmet into his hands and told him to put it on, because if those dolls were tied to him, they'd get to the target in a snap. Nerves fluttered in his chest, but her words lit a fire under him. Helmet locked in place, he just trusted the connection with everything in him. He somehow managed to jolt them all awake. and they all shot forward in a blur, gone in a blink. Because he didn't empty every last coin. The feelings hadn't fully kicked in yet. Still, those dolls answered the call, not just with their programmed functions, but like they had hearts beating under the seams. Number 20 lit up with joy because he remembered the promise he was going to bring her back to Earth. Mom told me it was almost time to pass through the gate, even though not every servant doll had shown up yet. A bunch of them just didn't click with the kid the way the battle dolls totally did. Even though he felt a little crushed, Mom just grinned and told him, "Don't stress," because she grabbed the dolls with that transport bag. She'd pull the servant dolls out of her bag with spatial magic, shove them straight into her pocket, and the boy just stared like, "Why didn't you tell me that earlier?" She said she was scared it might just crush his hype for good. Every doll shoved through the gate, and now it was just them left, no one else in sight. They aimed a divine elixir made of golden honey at him, and whoosh, his body and soul split apart for a moment, blasting his mind with a surge of power. They warned him if he didn't drink it, the dimensional barrier would snap, and he'd absolutely lose it, spiraling into a full-on mental meltdown. And just half a second later, his body crumpled with a sickening flop. And the second he hit the city streets, he drifted along like a ghost, totally weightless. Living there had been pure fun for the boy. Every single corner was packed with a new surprise. But now the moment of goodbye finally hit. He jolted awake with Nana cradling him in her arms. They finally crashed back on the surf again, right where the action hits. After 3 long years, he finally made it back to the office. He stared around, baffled like, what if this wasn't the world he used to know at all, because every street and shadow felt like a jungle. His mom leaned in and demanded to know if he wanted to find out where they were going. Then she shoved the divine glasses, an ultra-super magical tool, straight into his hands. She admitted she planned to hand it over as a birthday gift, but then she changed her mind and ditched it for good. She told him to snatch the glasses on, lock in, and figure out exactly where he was at then. Boom, like a projector fired to life, a map snapped onto the screen. But something about it felt wrong, like the place was lying compared to the map he knew by heart. The second he saw that glowing dot marking his spot, his stomach dropped. He wasn't in his old world anymore, he was trapped in the new one. But they were way out west, in a stretch of land so dangerous it was basically a no-go zone. He seriously considered retreating to the ruins where they'd teleported out of the floating city, but hey, you can't always ask for everything, right? Staring at the map, he figured if he head east, he'll slam straight into the city of Melia. Then the kid couldn't wait a second longer. He was itching to sprint back to his family, who'd been waiting for him. Then right on the map, something bright and red snapped his attention. A loud warning flashed above the glowing dot. The name of this place was the City of Sin, Melia. His mom told him this. If he pictured a totally different spot, the map would light it up in red. He couldn't stop wondering why it had that name in the first place. But now he finally knew where home was, and he couldn't wait to get back and bounce right into it. Right as he reached for the map to shut it away, an alert snapped onto the screen, detection mode screaming to life. Nana screamed a warning to her master. Hostile monsters were crashing in fast. The kid caught sight of a brutal horde of over 100 tough-looking shoulder men, and they looked absolutely vicious. It felt like a nest was right around the corner, and messing into it would have been an absolute buzzkill. Nana leaned in and asked her master, should we take them out? That's when the boy snapped back. Up in the celestial realm, fighting wasn't even a thing. But these things were basically battle dolls itching to charge into the fight. So he barked the order to take them out, just make sure you do it carefully. They all snap into action and obey their master's command instantly, and he figured it would be a walk in the park, but the truth hit hard. Both sides were nearly dead even. In under a minute, they wiped every last one of them out. He was absolutely stunned at how fast and effortless they pulled it off. His mom told him to power the dolls up with a surge of magic for all their hard work. Then she winked and promised that later she'd flood them with a ton of mana. Then a deer burst onto the scene, sprinting straight at the boy like it had somewhere urgent to be, and crushed him in a tight hug, missing him like crazy. And the boy practically burst with joy, saying how thrilled he was to be back on the surface with everyone. They all went crazy the second they heard that, and sprinted over, desperate to prove their love. Nana snapped at them that they couldn't afford even a second to relax. A fresh life sign flickered to the northwest, and somehow it didn't scream monster. It was a long haul, but the boy lifted his glasses and focused his sight out for miles. He spotted 2 masked figures crouched in the trees, hiding like shadows. The combat dolls swore on their lives that the boy would be protected, no matter what tried to stop them. They all tore in together, sinking nails and teeth into anything that dared threaten their master. Nanashi scanned the area around those two again and caught roughly 10,000 more signals, neutral, non-hostile energy, just humming with life. The boy couldn't shake the feeling that they might actually belong to the indigenous peoples of the New World. When he stared harder, he spotted a sign screaming that this was Amazon territory, packed with 9,848 women. Up in those trees, two silhouettes were probably watching the whole group, while the boy figured the Amazons wouldn't look anything like he'd expected. But he couldn't stop wondering if any of the natives were thinking the same way, because he desperately wanted to see Melia, even if it was only for a quick hot minute. He mapped out a fast detour to the Amazons, and the dolls practically hissed at him to watch his step, because they had no clue what their intentions really were. He grinned, saying he was pumped to finally be back on the surface after so long, but he still wanted every single detail he could get about that place. They all chimed in like, yeah, of course he'd do something like that, totally expecting it from him. A few minutes later, they were closing in on the exact spot where that duo had been spotted. Everyone had their guard up, ready to shield that boy from any danger that dared to show up. When they finally arrived, Nana tilted her head and confirmed the two were perched about 5 meters up in the tree. The boy claimed he'd crept in slow on purpose, just to prove he wasn't there to hurt them. But the second he closed in, the wild ones tightened their grip and leveled their arrows, ready to unleash an attack. Nana bolted behind her opponent in a blur. Ein shot the question back, did she just KO them, no extra drama at all? She fired back, yeah, they weren't trying to hurt him, they were just aiming arrows at his feet to scare him straight. And if they tried to shoot him, she'd snap their necks in an instant, no hesitation, not even a blink. She snatched the bow and all the other weapons they were carrying. Mom snapped that they had to strip down for the body search, too many layers, and they might have been hiding a whole arsenal. Right when they raised their bows to fire as a threat, they could just strike again, no hesitation. So he figured, let's dial it down, and hit the X-ray mode on his glasses instead. He couldn't help it, those two girls were seriously adorable, and he was low-key impressed. He checked them over and made sure there were 0 weapons tucked under their clothes. Like, don't just assume it's all a mom can manage. There could be way more hidden underneath, so go on, don't be shy, check it out. So he cranked the X-ray magnification way up. They hauled the bodies away and demanded the master look even deeper, but the boy snapped, nah, no need to dig that far. Right after they started stirring from sleep. The moment they were fully awake, they started blasting conversation in their native language, like they'd never stopped talking in the first place. To make them finally communicate, he snapped his language comprehension magic into action. Now he finally had the chance to talk to them, so he kicked things off by saying, I mean no harm, I just want to learn more about this place. But neither one so much as blinked or spoke, and soon Nanashi leaned in and asked if she should start forcing answers, only for the boy to shut that idea down fast. They kept swearing they were heading east, but the truth hit hard, they were completely lost. And only recently, they'd stumbled straight into a savage horde of cannibals. The second they heard cannibals were out there, the two wild ones shot him questions. How on earth did he manage to stay alive and unpicked? The boy swore that Nana and the crew just wiped out around 100 of those guys. Without warning, the tube buckled downward, and begged him, use your power, save our kingdom. They begged him to snatch them from the cannibals before they got chopped up for dinner. They claimed they lived in a place near the Amazon called Yun, and the one with dark hair was named Minyu. Ian threw out his name and pressed, so what's going on here? She told me the region had plenty of countries that were cool with her people, until the cannibals swept into the jungle in massive numbers and took over like they owned the place. Within just a few years, every tribe and kingdom beyond the Amazon was wiped clean, so brutally that everyone ended up as food. More than 100,000 people were turned into dinner. Hearing that, Ein snapped into action, because if this kept going, their tribe would be next on the menu. He blurted out whether they knew how many cannibals were out there, and the answer came back. They had no exact number, not even in the Amazon. And they made it crystal clear there were way more than 10,000 of them. Regular warriors would get wiped out in seconds, because even 10,000 of those beasts is enough to steamroll any medium nation with thousands of soldiers and leave nothing standing. The mom leaned in and told him, you can totally crush this, just unleash it. He poured out every last scrap of magical power and blasted a massive explosion spell, like a supercharged lightning bolt from the heavens. But if he pushed that far, the kingdom and the jungle would both be wiped out, too much to even consider. He'd found a death magic method made to slaughter the cannibals, but if even the strong ones screwed up, the jungle itself would go up in flames. A master mage with razor-sharp control could reshape every spell on the fly, so his power never harmed his allies. Yeah, it turns out he wasn't exactly great at it, so this whole thing felt brutal and tricky, but the plan was simple. Use Nana and the others to smash the cannibals up close, because with just 100 dolls, each one would have to drop 100 of them. And yeah, those cannibals were probably lurking in nests all over the area, so the smartest play was to hit every single nest with one coordinated strike. The boy figured this was going to drag on forever, but his mom shut that down fast. She didn't want to babysit the job one piece at a time, because they'd knock it all out in a single day. She gathered every doll and swore they'd strike that cannibal nest alone, then vanish with nothing left but dust. And the one who slaughtered the most cannibals would totally steal Ain's heart at night. Those words were exactly what it took to crank the dolls' hype to the absolute max. They were blazing with divine fighting spirit, all fired up to snatch that prize, and with Mom's order to go rack up kills, they tore out of there. I'd asked if that plan wasn't wildly reckless, and she shrugged it off, because the battle dolls had basically already beaten 1,000 of them. She told him to pop on his glasses to sharpen his vision, then sit back and relax while everything went down. A bunch of cannibals, several dozen strong, packed so much fighting power they might as well have been a dragon. The boy just stood there, frozen like he couldn't even breathe. I was totally mind blown. Those dolls were insanely powerful, and somehow still super chill in the middle of battle. But a battle doll stuffed with divine fighting spirit, that's like adding 10 dragons to your side, and before the sun even slipped under the horizon, everybody staggered back safe, while the cannibal cleanup turned into a straight-up victory. To celebrate the Amazons with a massive party, they spread out a feast so legendary it could have made their tribe's hero stop and stare. They lined up every kind of meat and delicious treat imaginable for the boy. He cut in mid-sentence, guilt crashing down on him, because while Nana and the crew were battling cannibals, he'd just been sitting there chewing like nothing mattered. But Nana was totally chill, like, no worries, got it, you're our master. His mom burst in, cutting straight through the moment. After he said this feast was special, he basically told everyone, all right, stop talking, just dig in. She said holding on to a human body costs a crazy amount of energy, and living on nothing but meat is a straight-up no if she wants real balance. Every so often it gets kinda chill, but her mystical mom energy was starting to slip at the edges. Then a woman in a strange mask stepped in and declared him the savior, so in her eyes he was owed every bit of this. That was Queen Anria, the spirit priestess who could talk straight to spirits, and yeah, she was insanely powerful. She talked like she'd lived 1,000 years, but her face still looked young enough to pass for his sister. With his glasses' X-ray vision, he scanned that little girl and saw she'd turn into an absolute knockout someday. When the other Amazons marched up to the queen and declared they were ready, she yanked him closer with a sharp call. She told everyone that her kingdom had a special welcome plan lined up just for their VIP guest. A warm, mouth-watering sake bath made just for him. The second they set up that pool, the whole place filled with the rich, heady scent of wine, rolling right toward him. The queen ordered him to strip down and jump straight into the pool. He wasn't just grabbing a meal after all, this was something way bigger. Every Amazon in the room started peeking, desperate to catch a glimpse of the Savior King as he got undressed. He asked the queen if it was cool to strip off his clothes, and she was just not having it. Go on, send it, you've got this, no stress. They barely ever saw a guy's body, but with all those gorgeous women staring at him, shyness hit him like a truck. His thoughts started sprinting on their own. Since they were rolling out the red carpet, he couldn't shake the feeling this welcome had way more hiding underneath. That room reeked of alcohol, so strong it hit like a punch. He'd get tipsy just by breathing it in. Right then, every single doll popped up like lightning and demanded, "Can we join the young master too?" The boy froze, totally speechless, as he stared at all of them standing together. His mom shot him a question like, "Are you actually expecting a nude welcome from the Amazons?" The queen caught it mid-conversation and snapped that the rules wouldn't let them show a scrap of skin to anyone, especially guys, while the boy swore he wasn't thinking about that at all. That the deer exploded onto him with a sudden, full-force jump. She shot him down, telling him to forget human girls altogether. The warrior dolls had skin so soft and gorgeous it felt unreal, and they'd do whatever he commanded without a second thought. The Amazons just stand there, watching the wild party explode in front of them. Once things finally settled down, and everyone was wiped out but the queen still checked in to see how the boy was doing, he grinned and said he had a blast that night. And then he realized the wildest thing, everyone in that place looked ridiculously young. So he turned to the queen and demanded to know why there weren't any older people around at all. She told him the cannibals were coming, so they had to hand over the old people, one after another. To keep their daughters and granddaughters safe, they cut down the older generation, over and over, until there wasn't a single soul left who was over 30. The last queen, who was also the current queen's mom, threw her own life away to save her country and everyone in it. The boy couldn't help it. He felt awful for dragging up those gut-wrenching memories. She thanked him again, voice trembling, for wiping out those cannibals, and at last the ones they'd sacrificed could rest in peace. The boy looked the queen in the eye and told her to go easy on this peaceful night. Then he leaned in and asked, "So, do you take those masks off when you sleep?" She leaned in and asked the savior if. I just had to see the real her, no masks, no hiding. If he really wanted to, she could have shown him, but he had to remember the rules. With a sweet, innocent grin, the boy blurted that she didn't have to remove it, because apparently he could already see everything. His mom stared him down and demanded, "So, you've been using that God-given sight to watch our faces, huh?" He shot back that he could see crystal clear. But it still felt fair, because people kept catching him half-naked all the time. That sent the whole room into instant tension, and the boy's stomach churned as unease crept in. The dolls shot into position in front of him, acting like a wall to block every danger. He couldn't believe how it all spiraled into this nightmare. Then the queen blared for everyone to calm down. He unleashed a deadly kind of spirit magic, wind lamentation. The queen leaned in and promised she'd school him in the rules of the Amazon women, straight up, no cap. The Amazon has to keep her skin covered up tight, no one can see her face. They only show their faces to the fam, anyone else, big no-no. He shuts that door. If a woman catches a glimpse of her own face, it's all good, but if a guy sees it, that's when the trouble starts. By the rules, that boy should have already been dead and gone. Yeah, that's exactly how it went down with those people. If an Amazon has got you, you're golden, everything's gonna be alright. And once a guy has seen her real face, he's got only two paths: love her or meet his end. Nanashi and number 20 snapped at him to calm down. They'd take care of those women ACP. He snapped, "Hold up before you go doing anything wild." And he grilled the queen for the real meaning of love, then she finally explained it. As you can see, there isn't a single dude in the Amazon. So for the future of the Savior Nation, everything rides on what comes next. She demanded he unload his seed into her, and for every Amazon whose real face he'd finally seen. She begged him to pour his love all over the entire crew. Then the boys started spiraling, thinking about it nonstop. He snapped awake the next morning. Dolls were piled on him left and right, and pure fear hit him like a freight train. Wondering what on earth could be happening this early. She leaned in and swore she'd stay with those humans all night long, and she didn't break promises. Now she wanted to tear into the fun with him and make every second count. At night, the dazzling Amazons keep him company. Then at dawn, the warrior dolls march in and steal the spotlight. Living like a king, surrounded by stunning beauties, no doubts at all. And when the night finally stretched long and dark, they hauled him off to the lodgings. Everyone kept pushing for his love, like, right now, swearing they were ready for him and begging him to choose them quick. But even so, that love still wouldn't land in the queen's heart. He figured he'd play the long game, waiting for her to grow up, because that's just how he lived. Living in that jungle was like getting hit by 1,000 sensations every day, pure sensory overload, no joke. Days stretched into weeks, dragging time along like a slow nightmare. A whole year vanished in a blink, and he couldn't help but wonder just how far he'd push it from here. Even in the jungle, he wasn't just chilling in some easy harem life, you know. As the seconds dragged on, the queen couldn't help but wonder, was it finally time yet? She was laser-focused on getting that boy's C2, there was no doubt about it. But we'll save that wild tale for later, because pretty soon, that kid's gonna tell us even more of his jungle adventures. The moment he first touched down in the Amazon, and then he hauled that wooden beast right before the queen and made her see it with her own eyes. He used to blast through the jungle like it was nothing. He even drove off the vile demons of men, then dreamed of widening his grip on the Amazon, until the queen snapped, "So tell me how many beasts." She was completely shook when he dropped 100. She smiled and said, "That's exactly what I expected from you, no pressure, just keep going." Ein joked that the wooden doll might look small next to golems, but it's still way tougher than any medieval human. If he keeps pumping it with mana, it won't stop grinding. He could even whip those fallen trees around like they were nothing, turning them into even more wooden dolls to crank up the workforce. As everyone buzzed with excitement over his powers. That's exactly what hooked him and kept him right there. And the very first thing he demanded for the kingdom was this: burn through that jungle and clear it. Sure, he was there for the main creation and the extras, but sticking around just for that would have been a total stretch. When he was forging a hoe, but then one of the Amazons blurted out, "Why?" Because there aren't any fields or rice paddies around, they usually survive by going out hunting for every meal. The boy swore the hoe was the key tool, meant to shape the fields just right for farming. With a hoe, you can dig super deep even when the soil fights back, and that's exactly how you crank up farming efficiency. But dig too deep and you'll trigger erosion, strip the land of its life, and turn once fertile ground into barren wasteland, just like it does on modern Earth. Back in Melia, he'd already mastered the Bichu hoe, then he held it back, waiting for this exact moment. In that jungle, there's so much open ground to work with that they can take the leap, gamble big, and go all in. And if they lay the groundwork, even people with zero farming experience can still pull it off. But the real question was brutal. What were they even supposed to grow if they had no seeds to start with? The mother spotted the boy lost in thought, then stepped in to see if she could help. And she lined in, asking if he wanted seeds to start farming. And if that was truly the deal. These weren't just any seeds, someone hid magic right inside the wheat. They looked like plain wheat seeds, but they were actually engineered back in the age of ancient magical civilizations. Unlike regular wheat, these magical plants don't just need water and oxygen, they demand a dash of mana too, and the payoff is huge. They're insanely tough, rarely fail at harvest, and the yield is straight up next level. They don't click in low mana zones, but honestly, here, the mana's everywhere. This place is basically a full-on mana party. Mana levels can be wild and unpredictable, but tracking a place this packed with density is seriously uncommon. But hey, what if the whole world is just overflowing with mana for some insane reason? Alright, let's get this show on the road. He asks his mom if there's anything else, and she tosses him a whole pack of seeds and seedlings for magical veggies. Everybody jumps in, and just like that, the field transforms, looking crisp, clean, and totally fresh. One of the Amazons slides in like a storm, dropping into with coconut juice to power the whole crew. The boy leans in and asks, "So you're pros at farming?" And they're like, "Dude, our tips are straight up helping, like for real." Everyone's snatching it up at lightning speed, and at this pace, they won't even need the golems backing them up. His mom told him that when she used a magical tool to scan the jungle soil, it lit up with a massive stash of coal buried deep underground. But burning coal here felt like they'd jumped straight into tomorrow's tech with today's clunky tools. He asked whether ancient civilizations ever burned coal, and she told him it was around for a hot minute, then they ditched it for oil. To keep their floating city spotless and green, they dodged coal and nasty magical oils at every turn, and thanks to science, they could turn raw emotion straight into mana energy. So yeah, because of that, the newest battle dolls like Nana can crank up their combat power thanks to their master's love. By now, coal's basically worthless, like, yeah, it's that bad. Not entirely, and his mom yanked out a magical synthetic diamond maker. She told him if you hold coal in that glove, heat and pressure will crush it into a diamond, and the boy just stared, speechless, because the best part was coming next. That diamond maker strips out every trace of impurities on its own, leaving the diamonds unbelievably pure. Yeah, it's gonna drain the kid's money, but he won't let that stop him. He felt on top of the world because she trusted him with her man. His mom asked if he could build some golems, those heavy-duty machines, and he shot back, absolutely, as long as he could track down the right rocks. He ordered them to tear up the jungle, dig out mountains of hidden coal, and start pumping out diamonds non-stop like a non-stop factory. A whole year later, fast forward, they were still cranking out diamonds at an insane, breakneck pace. For now, almost all those diamonds were still only worth a few dozen measly carats. With just a handful of stones, all over 100 carats. His mom told him about a legend, crafting the ultimate diamond out of ash, but this kid's got a mountain to climb before he can ever reach that level. But honestly, he couldn't help thinking the diamonds he forged were straight up badass. On Earth, synthetic diamonds are basically pocket change, but in this world they don't even exist. If they really did, they'd fetch the same price as the real deal, maybe even more, easily topping 100 gold coins. Because he raked in over 30,000 diamonds last year, it had to be one of the greatest years of his whole life. The queen was blown away by the diamonds the boy forged. Every day, she'd drop by just to ogle the newest diamonds he'd forged. The Amazon rainforest had no shimmer of glass anywhere, so it totally made sense why everyone went absolutely feral over those diamonds. Last year he tore through the jungle, crushed their enemies, and carved out more territory, leveling up the kingdom and shoving it into the next era. Thanks to the manor, that rich land finally flourished. That wheat and veggie harvest was absolutely wild, so now the Amazons are set with enough food to last them for years. Nana and the whole crew tear off to hunt monsters, ready to take them down. He kept the place spotless, and before long that corner felt locked down, safe as a hug and cozy as home. When he checked in with Nana, everything good, she lit up and said, yeah, all because of the diamonds he'd handed her. The dear one couldn't stop bragging that the boy had handed her the biggest diamond of them all. Then a friendly debate erupted, everyone arguing over which diamond was the prettiest and the biggest. The queen was absolutely ecstatic. Just a year ago, she never imagined life could turn this peaceful. And it all happened because their hero stepped in and lit everything up. With a warm smile, she spoke for every Amazon. She was over the moon now, and she thanked that boy again. The boy strutted around, bursting with pride. His magic and sharp thinking kept the peace in check, and every move he made boosted the whole country. The girls were swarming him from every side. She reminded him to plant those seeds, right now, not just everywhere in the fields, but like they'd promised. They were basically daring him to plant his little seed in them. But he had to snap back fast. His family and Melia were waiting, right back at home for him. Breaking a promise, now legends don't do that. So he decided to kick back in the Amazon for a little longer. Before the night even dropped, they were already swarming him, barking that he needed to start immediately. Nana had to jump in and tell them straight up that nights weren't for that kind of messing around, so they'd better follow the rules. Meanwhile, the boy felt unstoppable. Being wanted felt like pure victory, but he could already sense he'd get crushed if this kept up. While the kingdom was booming and every family was planning their next move, he suddenly stumbled into a real mess. Then another girl suddenly showed up, begging him to plant his seed in her too. She looked exactly like the sister he cared about more than anything. Ever since he rolled into the kingdom, she latched onto him like glue, and he spent every single day dodging her requests. Just a year in, and she was starting to look more and more like his sister. So he leaned in and demanded to know why she kept calling him Big Brother. She basically said he was a straight-up lifesaver, like a big brother who always had the coolest lessons ready to drop. And she practically begged him to hurry, promising she'd finally learn family planning from him. The boy fought tooth and nail against his own instincts, wrestling to resist that crushing temptation. But that wasn't even the biggest thing on his mind after a whole year. It felt like nobody in the room could get pregnant. At this pace, he'd never claw his way out of that jungle. He felt bad for Rhea, but man, it was brutal staying in that atmosphere. Back in Melia, his family felt impossibly far away, like it had been forever since he'd last seen them. He couldn't wait to get out of there. Like yesterday, the queen leaned in and ordered him to knock up someone first, so he could leave a little piece of his DNA behind and finally get out. The boy blurted, "It's been a whole year, time to head home." The little girl snapped that she couldn't get pregnant for at least a year, and he told her to come back in 5, but she wasn't about to wait around. He swore he'd help them get pregnant. His mom leaned in and asked, "Can you stay a little longer?" But he'd had enough of stalling, so his mom slapped a new deadline on him, 3 months this time. And he needs to apologize for judging them by those glasses, or is he the kind of guy who breaks a promise halfway through, she wondered. He said he'd stay put for 3 more months, and the queen fired back that if it was a real deadline, she could roll with it. And she told him, then aim to beat 100 pregnant women a day. But this was his final chance. He had to land the shot and make every second count. From that moment on, he shut himself inside one of the palaces, and it quickly turned into a full-blown harem. He wrapped his arms around the Amazon women. There were too many ladies to even pick. My head was spinning. He might drop out cold from pure exhaustion. Super Vitality water was pure magic in a bottle. 1 sip and your energy surged, your stamina skyrocketed. That idea, weakening and dying from exhaustion, was just a cruel myth, and his mom proved it by shoving an elixir into his hands to keep him going. As he chugged the elixir in one gulp, Korea burst up behind him and wrapped him in a tight hug. She swore this was their time. Now was the moment they'd finally bring a baby into the world. He was still scrambling to dodge Rhea's advances like it was business as usual. Kurita was crushed. She hadn't gotten real, one-on-one time with Eind in forever. They felt it too back when he'd always rush back to his cabin before dawn. Now he just stayed put inside. Nana tried to lift their spirits by saying, but without their master there, they felt completely alone. When the boy finally came racing back, Quarita popped open the door, smiled at him, and practically dragged him inside to play. He swallowed his pride and apologized, admitting he hadn't hit his daily quota yet. 2 Amazons swooped in, snatched him up, and hauled him off to the bath for a few more rounds. Kurita planted herself by the window and just stared out, unable to look away. And then he totally panicked because those girls were completely taking over the whole little master. Nearly 2 months had slammed by since that promise was made. And nothing, absolutely nothing, had changed at all. His mom made it her mission to make sure he stuck to every word of that promise, even though he was on the edge of snapping completely. Even with the potions in hand, hitting that quota was brutal as hell, but it was honestly awesome. They needed it that bad and were pushing for it. Even if the view was incredible, grinding this every single day crushed him. He didn't even get a second to vent, everything hit too fast. More girls kept popping up, begging him to plant their seeds. Even when he begged for a breather, they yanked him right back to the harem and one of them swore there was still a girl out there who hadn't gotten any of his seeds yet. Rhea felt herself sinking deeper and deeper into disappointment. He leaned in and asked what was going on with her, because the moment he showed up in the kingdom, she'd somehow turned even more gorgeous. And she blossomed both in body and in spirit. All he could think was that she was his little sister. Then the other Amazons started grilling him hard, demanding why he kept dodging her after he swore he'd never turn anyone down. Nanashi barged in and snapped, "Chill out now." And he still refused to use his kindness like a free pass. The girls snapped back, "Why are you interrupting us?" And that's when Curate jumped in, snapping that it was all part of the deal, except the master didn't want any of it. And those dolls were on a whole other level, way better than any human. The girl shook her head and said humans grow and change, good and bad, and that's the real beauty. She said they weren't like lifeless creations at all. Everything started feeling off, like the air itself tightened, and that tension hit like a storm about to break. His mom told him they're deep in some real heavy drama going on for months. She told him she needed to keep the battle dolls locked down so nothing slipped out, but even then, there were moments when it felt like the whole thing was about to explode. They were terrified the Amazon women would swipe his heart right out from under them. And she thought he was spreading love to the battle dolls too, but even then, something about him just didn't feel the same to them. He swore nothing would ever be the same again, and now he was trapped in this non-stop conflict. And then he couldn't stop wondering, were all the dolls feeling this same twisted fear too? The mom figured if they stayed put, the dolls would only grow more furious, and Ain looked like he was cracking, physically and mentally, under the strain. Then the mom stormed in with a magic ejaculator, packed full of white liquid in it. And she swore it was a mind-blowing magical tool that could inject his DNA straight into women. And with that, he could offer his DNA to as many as 100 women, turning up the odds of fertilization like crazy. The boy just wanted a shot at doing it alone, at least once, but as long as he held onto that promise, that was all that truly mattered. In just a month, he could hand his DNA to around 10,000 women across the Amazon. And only about 10% managed to pull off fertilization successfully. So yeah, thinking about it, that's 1,000 kids for the boy who completely lost it the second the thought hit. He was diving headfirst into something absolutely wild. Time's flying, and now there are just 10 days left before they tear out of the Amazon. He scrambled together a whole stash of farewell diamonds before the goodbye could hit. The DNA distribution machine was humming along perfectly, so he was probably right on schedule. But still, a bunch of girls were hounding him, begging for the old school way. Nana blurted out using the tool, way too unnecessary, honestly. The battle dolls and the Amazon women were stuck in a Cold War standoff. Then a girl slammed through the door screaming that something terrible was about to happen. The giants were surging toward the Amazon kingdom, closing in fast. And then boom, everything hit like a wall, massive beyond belief. The queen went pale with shock and demanded, "How many of them are there?" The girls claimed they were giants, 5 and 10 meters tall, towering over everyone. And that colossal giant was there too, huge, looming, and impossible to ignore. And she couldn't believe a real 50-meter giant was standing right there. Queen Anria crumpled to the ground. He thought it was the end, like the moment the giants invaded the village, everything would be over. Iron heard that colossal giants could fight so hard they even beat dragons, and he freaked out enough to ask his mom if they'd be all right. She smiled and said yes. After all, he already had 100 fighter god dolls locked and loaded, ready to smash into the fray. He leaned over the dolls and asked, "Is it cool if I pull you into this?" Nana grinned and said, "No problem at all. If the master orders it, we'll follow, and we'll love every second." His mom swore that if it was a giant, those dolls would crush it on their own, especially now, with weapons the boy had made them. They fueled those weapons with raw, crafted magic, straight from the pure furnace they built themselves. It all starts with synthesized diamonds as the base, and that magical tool is insanely simple. Just toss the materials in and POW, you've got yourself some kick-ass weapons. But if you screw up and it goes kaboom, you can kiss goodbye to a whole 100 kilometers of land. With these weapons in hand, the dolls got their combat skills turbocharged, straight up leveled up and ready for. But seriously, those colossal giants were so huge compared to everyone else, it was straight up unreal. His mom told him to crank out a gigantic golem and make it go to war. A golem's power comes down to one thing: how huge it is and what it's built from. They needed a massive stash of materials to go up against those giant dog monsters, and his mom was the one laying it all out for him. They fired the question at the girl, how close were the giants, and she shot back that they were just out in the pastures, right before the jungle. His mom told him, we're going there to clash, because if we have to face them, we won't have any reason to pull our punches. The queen lined in and demanded to know, did he really have a plan to deal with all those giants? No matter how tough he was, that was a total risk, straight up no cap. He tried to calm her down, then swore he'd find a way to put an end to it. That very night, way out in the northern pastures beyond the Amazon jungle, everything turned eerie. A ferocious brawl erupted as the golem, the giants, and the dolls collided in pure chaos. Heinz's army was straight up legendary, like the kind of legend people still talk about in whispers. All those dolls teaming up like that to face a crowd of giants, pure epic chaos. Right in the middle of everything, the boy nearly blurted out that infamous death flag line and his mom told him to stay sharp, and he laughed because it felt way too easy. She nodded, then said the speed gap between the dolls and the giants was insane, and with those diamond gear pieces boosting them, both their attacks and their durability were straight up on a whole other level. They built a massive diamond golem, all crafted by the boy himself. And right then, he dubbed it Diamond G****. He locked onto Nana and the rest as they tore into the giants, smashing them down one after another. The moment he flipped on his glasses supervision, he spotted Rhea and the other Amazons crouched in the plants, hiding in plain sight. They were terrified for him, because even though those dolls could take hits, if they messed up, he'd be the one they had to shield. Then, without warning, one of the giants lunged out of the chaos, barreling straight at them like it was here to smash everything in its path. The boy screamed at them to get out of there, like their lives were seconds from ending. From where he stood, there was no chance he'd make it to them before it was too late. In the blink of an eye, those dolls shot down like missiles and rescued all three of them. They quickly checked in, making sure they were really okay, and told them to lay low in a safe spot, because he was 100% sure they were about to wipe out those giants. The boy's shoulders finally dropped, pure relief, and he was absolutely fired up that Nana and the whole crew had his back. His mom said one problem was dealt with, but the moment she finished, a fresh one started popping up again. The colossal giant started to warp and shift, then dark green armor peeled into view like it was being forged right in front of us. That was the Earth Giant, top tier, Gaia blessed and guarded by the Earth Goddess herself. To trigger that top tier elemental magic, Gaia's armor, they were probably just standing by, ready to jump in the second the moment hit. The dolls told them, leave it to us, we'll handle it while we still can. Once that massive giant finally finished its transformation, the boy blared a warning and shouted for everyone to back up. The golem surged forward, right into our path. He charged straight at the colossal giant while the dolls yanked back, holding the line just long enough. They rushed over and asked the boy if he was okay, and he nodded hard and said, yeah, I'm good. Nana told him, you don't have to break yourself trying to protect us like that. She said the Amazons are just humans, so yeah, she's convinced they desperately need someone to save them. But these dolls aren't real people at all, they're just made-up creations. And even if they shatter, they won't die. He pulled her into a tight hug and told her to stop saying that, because whether they were dolls or not, it didn't change a thing. They mattered to him more than anything. Every single one of them had a beautiful heart, and they were just ordinary girls living their normal lives. He lined in and demanded they trust Dimon, no questions, and make sure they take care of themselves. That doll is absolutely on fire with hype. And his mom leaned in and asked, ready. He seized control of Diamond G and slammed straight at the colossal giant. It slammed its first strike straight into the middle of the giant's forehead. Even the boy thought it was done, like the fight had already ended for good. Still, after that brutal blow, the giant planted his feet and refused to fall. And he was ready to throw down. He slammed a punch Diamond G straight into his chest. That golem was so huge it wouldn't crack that easily. But it looked like a crack split open right across his chest. If the golem lands one more hit at this pace, it's going to spell disaster. Iron refused to let it happen. So he didn't wait around. If the best defense is a good offense, then he went straight in. His mom warned him, this opponent wasn't the kind you drop with one single hit and walk away. That's why he never stopped attacking, because he'd tear the world apart to protect everyone. Raining down a brutal flurry of punches on the massive giant. He went all out and then bam, the giant slammed into the ground, shaking the whole place like an earthquake. The jungle finally calmed down again. The queen thanked the boy again for wiping out the cannibals, and now the giants, and basically crowned him the real hero of the jungle. Even if it was for the nation's good, I still laid into them pretty hard, the queen admitted. An Amazon leaned in, baffled, and demanded how the dolls still managed to save her after all that chaos. Nana warned them that if they get even a scratch, the master feels the pain right alongside them. And trust me, they totally understand what it feels like to fall headfirst for the master. Tears streaming down their faces, the girls thanked the dolls and begged forgiveness, heartbroken. Finally, it looked like the dolls and the Amazons had put their whole feud behind them, and that meant the boy practically exploded with joy. Then out of nowhere, Rhea exploded onto Nana's back, clinging on like she'd been waiting for the perfect moment. She was buzzing with pride, telling everyone she was stoked she could help in that moment. She wrapped it all up by blurting, "I love you," and swore they'd stay together forever. A wave of pure relief crashed over the boy, and for the first time his shoulders finally dropped. No more pressure, no more having kids demanded of him. But honestly, watching everyone beam in that country was the real victory. 6 months after blasting the giants out, the farewell clock started creeping closer. The Amazons were crushed by it, but the boy stepped in fast and promised them that the giant threat was finally gone for good. Now it's time for him to tear back to Melia, no excuses. Thanks to Ein stepping in to handle the development project as a side gig, the departure kept getting delayed again and again. Finally, the data finally left the Amazon, and they were locked in, ready to unleash a massive Earth-aligned act of magical worship. The ship dwarfed their base, stretching to roughly 300 meters long and 30 meters wide like a floating monster. And it was nearly the same size as the rebuilt space warship Yamato, so yeah, it had to be a total coincidence. Mom said it was an airship fueled by pure magic, and it could even teleport for short distances. An ancient piece of magical tech packed with both spellcraft and real science, all in one wild machine. Hold up, because this story's about to get even crazier. The ship rolled out a colossal magical cannon that blasted compressed magical dimensional waves straight into the chaos. It could blast something the size of an asteroid clean out in a single shot. And just like that, they blasted back to Melia before you could blink. Queen Anria lined in and thanked the boy again for everything he did and for helping the Amazons level up. And just like that, everyone could finally breathe easy, living in a land buzzing with peace and prosperity. Cradling babies in their arms, the others Amazons swore they'd guard the future, generation after generation, because the Savior made it possible. For the last time, the queen lunged for the boy's seed, but he snapped at her to back off and wait. Then his mom finally called him over, yelling that it was time to bolt. Once everyone was finally aboard the ship, they shouted their farewells and left nothing unsaid. And the boy shouted for everyone to stay safe. After everything, he couldn't shake the gut feeling that he'd just planted something truly epic in that country. Now he's back to his king routine, and the dolls all bow and treat him like royalty. And they told him, "We've been training non-stop together lately, so just hang tight for a bit, okay?" Earth's living quarters were absolutely top tier and insanely spacious, but the trip was so wild that before even half a day passed, they were already near Melia, still with only a few hours to go. The boy joked that if his mom had let them slip out earlier, they'd have reached Melia way faster. But she snapped back that it was him who picked the scenic route in the first place. Vinta jumped in and told us they'd already crossed scorching deserts and brutal highlands ages ago. The boy couldn't shake the weird feeling. This new continent should have been packed with settler towns and cities, plus a whole bunch of indigenous people, so where were they? He thought it was just a thick, wild jungle, then the magical energy hit like a storm, way off the chart. Nana leaned in and asked if anyone even lived there, and the boy shot back that only a few years ago it was bursting with greenery and water. She started wondering if the Amazons had said anything about it, but the boy shrugged. Since they only lived in a tiny slice of the jungle, they probably never even heard about this. But that uneasy dread wouldn't quit his chest, and he just couldn't shake the feeling that something bad had gone down. Mom warned them, "We'll be there in like 5 minutes. She promised she'd switch the ship to stealth mode, because if they flew straight over the city, the whole place would lose its mind. So he decided to shove those weird thoughts aside for now and hit the road, determined to learn every corner of the whole world. Finally, he shot back to Melia. But the moment he laid eyes on it, his mind totally blew. Amelia was nothing like the one he remembered. This was a whole different person. Even at midnight, the place was jam-packed, and it was way more chaotic than the boy promised the dolls. Magic-lit public lights burned everywhere like the city itself was glowing. Ayn couldn't wrap her head around how much Melia had leveled up in just 5 years, and now it was clear the city had gone through hell. In this world, the rich and the poor are so far apart it's basically insane. It was absolutely off the charts compared to before. From up there, Nana saw someone getting jumped, but she was totally helpless and couldn't lift a finger. The guy who got stabbed got his stuff and clothes snatched, and the people around him just kept strolling on like nothing happened. And in broad daylight, people were running wild, doing whatever they wanted like the whole world was a free-for-all. Ain couldn't stop wondering what was happening. Did Melia really turn into a city with zero morals? He replayed the message from that map, Melia, the city of depravity, and now his gut was screaming that it was real. The town where his whole life started, born, raised, and forged into who he became. Where his whole family had been rooted forever, generation after generation. He couldn't stop worrying about how his family was doing. He lined in and told his mom and the dolls he was heading straight to the city. Then he took off on a dangerous mission, hunting for his parents and his sister no matter what it took. But his desperation hit like a wave. He just had to track down someone he actually recognized. The moment he finally reached the place that used to be his home, he stared at the scene and realized it had turned into a full-on brothel. Even his family's house had been wiped off the map, and then bam, pure chaos snapped into his ears. Some guy tried to rob a bar owner, but they ended up in a heated argument. He demanded gold. They said, "Why would we want that? Since anyone could just recreate it, and that meant the gold would instantly lose all its value." One of the guys snapped from all that cocky attitude and unleashed pure rage, charging straight at him. With a snap of his wrist, the boy threw a spell that knocked everyone out cold. He hurried over to the bar owner, checking if he was still okay. The man thanked him again and again, throwing gratitude at him from every angle. Nyan turned to the guy and fired off, "All right, what year is it?" after he asked what he could do to show his gratitude. It was the year 998, back when everything was about to explode. Ayn didn't just arrive here, he was born in this world, and as the years piled up, discoveries started exploding everywhere. In his early teens, he shot up to the floating city, and 3 crazy years later, he dropped back down to Earth. He'd finally cool off for a whole year, and the strike wouldn't touch him. He leaned toward his mom and demanded to know what truly happened. And he swore he believed in the floating city in the sky and right here on the ground, though expecting a bigger tide of players was honestly a tough ask. His mom swore it was a family heirloom, something that only shows up in him, like it's meant to happen just a few times. She flipped the mirror transfer to anywhere, then declared she was stepping straight into the boy's store. Quickly the mom spilled the tea. And damn, most of their world had already been shattered by the True Demon War a few years back. With a magical civilization that advanced on Earth, she couldn't shake the thought that something like that wouldn't have slammed into the planet that hard. But in that war, they finally unleashed the real explosion. That real explosion slams pure mana cores together and detonates into a massive blast. His mom warned that the fusion explosion from true manatures wrecks the planet in a big way, so back then, it was a hard no, and that technique got sealed up tight. And the man admitted he didn't really understand what she meant, but it was painfully obvious that humanity had been pretty damn clueless. As alchemy leveled up, gold and silver suddenly lost their worth, smashing the whole global economy, so hard it ignited into full-blown war, and that's how today's humanity got ripped of a big chunk of its moral compass, leading straight to brutal showdowns packed with real explosions. Back then, the whole world burned alive with raw magical power. The mom finally got it, why magic was exploding everywhere, because the world's population had just crashed hard. A bunch of the survivors started living like they were spiraling out of control. Day by day, it got wilder and wilder. To the boy, it felt like he'd stepped straight into a world straight out of Asterisk Fist of the North Star, or Mad Max Asterisk. His mom snapped, "So what are you actually gonna do about it now?" Ayn said that if he ever got the chance to rewind time, he'd sprint straight back to the moment his family was still there. The little girl leaned in and swore there was a super magical tool that could let someone slip back to the past. She knew hopping across time and space was pure nightmare fuel, dangerous, tricky, and absolutely not for the faint of heart. Getting a shot at going back to a time of hope, yeah, the odds were razor thin. Because it was just the two of them. She couldn't stop thinking, will I ever see my family again? And then the brutal truth hit. There was no choice but to quit and finally let go of. When he was questioned about whether tears were running down his face, he said all he wanted was to get to his family fast and wrap his sister in a tight hug. Daiji is demanding stuff from everyone. A shattered pain and a desperate cry for help. Turns out the truth was already screaming at everyone. And the boy kept grinding it out with. The panther's golem powers kept snapping, crack after crack, until everything was breaking down fast. And then right when he least expected it, surprise hit like a punch. The sylph clone burst back in, grinning like, yeah, I'm starting to get the hang of this time and space stuff. The boy stared in disbelief as she came barreling back after that insane Sky Island ride. And when he got lost, he convinced himself she'd always be there, ready to steer him back. It's like a GPS, but way cooler. That little girl lit up like crazy. She finally found him again. Ein probably figured she'd show up looking like this, but he couldn't tell. Was this her final form or just a full-on glow-up? Sylph's head was spinning, wondering how this boy could see her so sharp and so clearly, and she swore she left her stealth mode on, but plot twist, she totally didn't. Suddenly, Mom spiraled into a full-on panic, and the boy blurted, "Are you okay?" because she was acting totally off the wall. That once the mom was trapped inside the giant statue, the sylph absolutely destroyed her. And he couldn't stop wondering, was she still wrecked by that whole disaster, like it shattered her for good? She snapped completely, yanked out a planet-destroying bomb, and left Ein trembling in shock. She figured she'd completely snapped. Pure terror from the goddess had fried her nerves. The mom snatched the pen and started to write. He stood super high, bomb gripped tight in his hand. Up above, she hurled the bomb straight at Earth. But Sylph snatched the bomb with a snap of her fingers, and the moment she did, she warned that it was way too dangerous to touch without thinking twice. Right before the bomb slammed into the Earth, it got swallowed straight into a superdimensional black hole, and it was gone. And she swore that a black hole was linked to some far spot in the universe. And now it detonated again somewhere else. With her plan totally collapsing, her mom's frustration just kept skyrocketing. Then she shoved the warship's power to the max and declared she'd blast the little one apart with her magic cannon. And she snapped at the boy to hurry back to the ship. He tried to argue, but Mom's furious glare shut him up fast. The two sprinted back toward the ship. Up on that stage, the dolls lined in and greeted them like they owned the place. But the second they laid eyes on their mom, all three of them froze, like, wait, what is happening? The mom lunged for the controls the second the boy tried to stop her. But it all went wrong. Then she snapped the cannon to life and blasted the sylph out of the sky. She cranked the dial to max power, and the countdown blasted to life. The boy figured if she's truly a goddess, she'll be fine. She's got insane power, and that thought hit him hard. Then the magic cannon roared and blasted a gigantic shot at full throttle. The boy was completely wrecked by the sheer, insane energy bursting around him. Locked its sights on the little one. He swallowed his fear and begged the goddess in silence to end the hunt, because even she knew how dangerous it was. Into her ultimate form, the supreme machine god. The boy snapped back to the memory like it was just seconds ago. And right there his mom followed suit. That was the goddess who smashed the statue his mom was in. She got hit right in the chest, then cranked it up 3 notches higher. And she hurled the attack back at their ship, only this time it hit way harder. And he couldn't believe it, this goddess just handled everything like it was effortless. But this wasn't the moment to be awed. At this pace, that attack was about to smash straight into the ship, right head on. Nana's mom screamed for her to shove every last drop of power straight into the Aegis barrier, the ultimate wall of magical defense. The barrier blasted up in an instant, sealing the entire ship from danger. From the incoming attack, right as disaster came crashing in. But the fight kept wearing it down, and the whole thing began to crack under pressure. His mom screamed, triple the magical power supply now. Nana snapped that the ship's magic was bleeding out fast, down to just 20% already. At this pace, their magic was going to hit 0 and they'd crash, so they had to either drop out fast or eat the full impact. The boy couldn't just sit still, he had to move or something would snap. He had no choice, he had to do something right now. He leaned into his mom and asked, "How can I help?" She demanded he pour all his magic straight into the earth. He leaned in and begged Nana for the magical supply crystals. She ordered him to press his hand to the crystal and dump every last drop of his magic into it. He was the final hope for everyone trapped there, and all eyes were on him. So the boy pressed his hand to the crystal. Then he unleashed his power, and the core surged even stronger. All that magic power surged back, and the shield thickened into stacked layers so heavy they could stop a truck. So yeah, with that kind of armor, it should finally stand up to the reflected magic cannon. But the magic pouring into the ship was way too much, and the boy's power wasn't endless. So if it just kept rolling like this, Nana snapped that the remaining magical power was slipping again, right when they could least afford it. Ein's magic started to sputter out, and he couldn't match the sylph's non-stop energy. The magical power had barely reached 10%. Yeah, that's a huge yikes. One tiny lapse in focus, and the kid would be face down, out cold, snoozing like a bear in winter. Then the power percentage countdown hit, and boom, game time was officially on. He was geared up to drain every single drop of his magic juice. He had to shield everyone there, and he couldn't stop. Don't stop, push him until he's completely wiped out. Suddenly, runes of true words erupted across the master's forehead like something from another world. That was the seventh gate of ruins, the ultimate magical gate, and I swear, no cap.